Chapter 81. Dai Xiaocheng is in prison. White tiger, possess me! Dai Mubai's voice dropped to a growl, his eyes glowing with a fierce, wild light. At his feet, 3 soul rings, 2 yellow, 1 purple, rose in tandem before streaking toward Cheng Xiao like living projectiles. First soul skill, Entangle. Almost at once, Tangsan unleashed his own soul ability. Dozens of thick strands of blue-silver grass burst from the ground, weaving and coiling around Cheng Xiao from every side. Caught off guard by this sudden pincer attack, Cheng Xiao narrowed his eyes. He pressed his feet into the earth, then slowly raised his hand. At first his palm remained loosely curled, but in the next instant it snapped open. The air around him quivered as invisible pressure built, and the very space seemed to warp. The power of the ruler. A shockwave of unseen force exploded outward. Dai Mubai, mid-lunge, was struck dead in his tracks, his body rigid, his waist buckling under the impact. The blue-silver grass, deprived of its momentum, slithered back and collapsed to the ground in soggy heaps. Dai Mubai's ribs groaned under the mighty grip of the ruler's spirit, and he found himself utterly pinned in place. Before he could struggle free, though, Cheng Xiao's ankles were seized by sinuous strands of blue-silver grass. The vines writhed around his legs, their barbed thorns puncturing skin and injecting a scorching poison. Agonizing pain shot through his calves, and in an instant, that pain was replaced by paralysis. Tang San watched closely, determined not to repeat his past mistakes. The moment Cheng Xiao lifted his palm for an attack, Tang San quietly wove his spirit power into the surrounding blue-silver grass. The emerald-green tendrils slithered from Dai Mubai's feet, wrapping instead around Cheng Xiao's ankles. To any onlooker, it looked as if the grass had naturally turned on them, shifting the struggle from one side to the other. Cheng Xiao, now immobilized, could do nothing as Tang San prepared to redirect the vines back toward Dai Mubai and free his friend. But before Tang San could act, a low, chilling voice rang out across the arena. Do you really think this is just a one-on-one duel of fighting spirits? At the same moment, a cascade of delicate pink petals drifted down from above, carrying a subtle, soothing fragrance. As they settled around Cheng Xiao, the paralytic poison seeped from his veins. With a gasp, feeling returning to his legs, he shook off the last of the grass's grip. Silence fell as everyone turned skyward, searching for the source of this unexpected intervention. Although Dai Mubai wasn't worried about the venom of the blue-silver grass, he was grateful for Cheng Xiao's backup. Cheng Xiao tilted his head, a dark purple gleam igniting in his eyes. In an instant, he curled his fingers, summoning a stream of golden soul power into his palm. The sacred energy swirled and hardened, forging a magnificent longsword of pure gold. This blade differed from Qian Renshui's sacred sword. Its body blazed with radiant light, yet its hilt seemed swallowed by shadow. Dai boss, watch out! Tang San shouted, alarm ringing in his voice. Cheng Xiao cast him a cold glance, then swung the golden sword in a fierce arc. With a sharp whistle of breaking wind, the weapon flew straight and true, cleaving the air like a cannonball. Tang San's heart lurched at the sight of the charging sword. Trusting to his ghost shadow step, he vanished into a scattering of afterimages, each one flickering out of existence as he evaded Cheng Xiao's deadly throw. Cheng Xiao's golden longsword blurred as it flew toward Tang San. Unfazed by the fact that the skill was called dagger throw, Cheng Xiao wasn't limited to actual daggers. His throwing dagger technique adapted seamlessly to any weapon he wielded. Tang San's eyes widened in alarm. No matter how he tried to use his ghost shadow phantom to evade, the blade's trajectory remained locked fast onto him. He's got me zeroed in, Tang San thought, heart pounding. I have no choice but to take it head on. Summoning every ounce of willpower, he flared his soul power until his palms glowed milky white, then slammed them together to catch the oncoming sword. The instant his hands met the blade, a crushing force roared through him, as though invisible jaws were trying to rip his arms apart. Even more terrifying, he felt his soul power drain away, snatched up by some unseen vortex radiating from the sword. Tang San's blood ran cold as sweat beaded on his forehead. This was no ordinary strike. It threatened to shatter both his body and his spirit. Tang San struggled to steady himself, but the golden sword's momentum was overwhelming. He skidded several meters across the ground before finally coming to a stop. Glancing down, he saw that the milky white glow of his palms had dimmed, and a fierce, burning pain cut through his hands, as if they'd been seared by flames. Worse still, half of his soul power had been consumed by that single strike. If he continued this fight head-on, he'd be forced to rely solely on concealed weapons. Fortunately, the golden sword only lingered in his grasp for a moment longer before vanishing on its own. Otherwise, his soul power would have been completely exhausted. "Xiao-san, are you all right?" Cheng Xiao asked, his magical bindings on Dai Mubai dissolving the instant the golden sword dissipated. Rather than turning on Cheng Xiao, Dai Mubai dashed to Tang San's side, concern etched on his face. He knew full well he could not defeat Cheng Xiao alone. Only by teaming up with Tang San did they have any hope of prevailing and of reclaiming the honor they'd lost. "I'm fine." Tang San waved his hand in dismissal, though his face had gone nearly ashen. Dai Mubai gave a curt nod, but his eyes drifted to Ye Lingling crouched behind Cheng Xiao. He leaned close to Tang San and murmured, "Xiao San, once I lock horns with him, that's your moment. Even with the auxiliary soul master distracting him, there's no way he'll have enough left to help his teammates. You just take him out." Tang San said nothing. He slipped his hand to the hilt at his waist, the 24-bridge moonlight blade, and summoned his spirit power. In an instant, a cloud of razor-fine silver needles shimmered into being between his outstretched fingers. Third soul skill, White Tiger Vajra Transformation, Dai Mubai bellowed. The white tiger spirit within him erupted outward, his frame inflated, muscles bulging so savagely that his shirt tore apart. Dark, horizontal stripes carved themselves across his brow, merging into the faint character king. He threw back his head and roared, "To hell with you!" With that, 10 brilliant silver claws burst forth from his massive tiger-shaped fists, each blade gleaming with lethal intent. Cheng Xiao's aura shifts the moment he unleashes his third soul skill. His skin glistens like burnished gold, and a blood-red light flickers in his eyes, yet he makes no move to summon the power of the ruler. Instead, he lets out a low, cold snarl and clenches his fist. Black smoke coils around him as shadowy energy gathers like a cloak. Tiny sparks of golden light dance across his knuckles. In the next heartbeat, Cheng Xiao vanishes in a blur of darkness. His fist, wreathed in pure shadow, rockets forward and crashes into Dai Mubai's bare chest with bone-shaking force. The impact reverberates through the arena in a thunderous bang. A violent gust roars outward, sending spectators on the sidelines instinctively raising their arms to shield themselves. Tang San's cry of alarm, "Boss die!" echoes across the soul-fighting platform. For a moment, stunned silence reigns. Then a shockwave of energy pulses from the platform, and Dai Mubai's form is hurled backward. A pale blur separates from the battleground and slams to the ground below. In the hush that follows, the faint crack of bones snapping sends a chill through every onlooker. Chapter 82. The Confidence Granted by the External Soul. Tang San's heart pounded as he watched Dai Mubai crumple to the ground, every inch of him racked with agony. He could no longer stand by. With a swift motion, the vines of his blue-silver grass wove out from his palm, lifting Dai Mubai's limp form as if he were weightless. Dai Mubai lay unconscious. Cheng Xiao's shadow power had shattered his soul force in the bombardment. Stripped of that protection, his fists had turned to brittle porcelain, his palm bent under even the slightest pressure. Fury burned in Tang San's eyes. He knelt beside Dai Mubai and pressed a firm hand to his chest. Channeling the gentle but formidable current of Xuantiangong, he fed healing internal force into Dai Mubai's bruised organs, knitting torn tissues and stabilizing his broken spirit. Cheng Xiao said nothing. This was a soul fight. There were no excuses to offer and no words to reclaim honor. She simply watched from the edge of the arena, her face as calm and cold as ever. Minutes passed. At last, Tang San drew back his hand. Sweat beaded on his brow, but relief flooded him. Dai Mubai's breathing had evened out, the worst of his internal injuries mended. Tenderly, Tang San lifted him and laid him on the low wall that marked the boundary of the soul stage. Dai Mubai's face was deathly pale, his once vibrant spirit hollowed. Tang San stared down at his friend, silent anger and worry warring behind his eyes. As the crowd's murmurs echoed around them, Tang San's expression grew darker still. He had staved off disaster this time, but the battle for true victory, and the unwavering confidence that came from the soul bone's power lay ahead. He lowered his head, fingers flickering with a cold, metallic gleam as he advanced on Cheng Xiao, each step measured and unhurried. "You dared to harm my brother," he said quietly. "Now you'll pay with your life." At that moment, Tang San's glance snapped upward, his eyes burning bright with violet light. Without warning, a volley of over 10 razor-sharp projectiles shot from his fingertips, aimed with deadly precision at Cheng Xiao's eyes, throat, heart, and knees. Cheng Xiao's expression remained calm. With a casual flick of his wrist, 2 short swords materialized in his hands. His gaze darkened, and in a single fluid motion he spun his wrists outward, sending the blades arcing through the air in perfect silver crescents. Ding! 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 The hidden knives struck steel on steel, clattering to the ground like hail on stone. Their impact rang out crisp and hollow, and Cheng Xiao stepped forward, the swords still glinting at his sides. He cast Tang San a cool glance. "All you could muster were concealed blades," he observed evenly. "Is that really the best you've got?" Tang San watched in dismay as each of his hidden weapons clattered harmlessly against Cheng Xiao's blade. His face went pale. Inside, he raced to find a way out of this deadlock. Cheng Xiao's dagger mastery was every bit a match for Tang San's proficiency with thrown weapons. There was no way to score a decisive hit. That left the 8-spider soul bone, or the formidable Zhuge divine crossbow. But before the duel had begun, he'd vowed to his master not to unleash any lethal hidden weapons. He made up his mind. For now, he would hold off on the divine crossbow and call upon his 8-spider soul bone instead. If he could freeze Cheng Xiao in place, even for an instant, he might seize the advantage. "First soul skill, entanglement," Tang San whispered. "Third soul skill, spiderweb binding." His 3 soul rings, 2 yellow, 1 purple, glowed in succession. From the earth surged a tangle of sapphire vines, lashing out to entrap Cheng Xiao's legs. Caught off guard, Cheng Xiao made no attempt to dodge. Instead, he launched himself forward in a fierce charge, dagger gripped in both hands. A faint, pitch-black aura shimmered along the blade's edge, revealing that Cheng Xiao, too, was ready to turn this duel lethal. Just as Cheng Xiao severed the last of the blue-silver grass V-ness, Tang San allowed himself a small, confident smile. "Second soul skill, parasitism," he announced. In the blink of an eye, countless shoots of blue-silver grass sprouted at Tang San's command, writhing through the air like living ropes to coil around Cheng Xiao. No sooner had they bound him than Tang San activated the parasitic offshoots hidden in their seeds, tiny tendrils that burrowed into Cheng Xiao's armor, tightening their grip even further. Not stopping there, Tang San unleashed his 3rd soul skill. A spectral spiderweb shimmered into being overhead, each silken strand weaving itself around Cheng Xiao's limbs, chest, and waist in successive, unbreakable rings. The moment all 3 skills snapped into place, Tang San's face drained of color. His soul power, already on fumes, threatened to collapse under the strain. Yet he refused to yield. Eyes locked on the figure he had ensnared, he drew in a ragged breath and flicked his wrist. From the sleeve of his jacket shot a shadowy shape, darting straight toward the helpless Ye Lingling. "First I'll deal with this auxiliary soul master," he murmured, voice low and deadly calm. "Then I'll turn to you." A faint red glow flickered in his dark eyes. In a single, sharp motion, his shirt split apart in shreds, revealing the stark ridges of his spine. From those exposed vertebrae sprouted 8 long, gleaming spears, each one a lethal extension of his own will. The instant Tang San unleashed the power of the 8-spider soul bones, a frigid aura rolled off him like an arctic wind. Soul bones, especially external ones, were exceptionally rare, and Tang San trusted these new weapons absolutely. Yet the moment he activated them, he sensed something had gone terribly wrong. The blue-silver grass that had tightly bound Cheng Xiao suddenly shattered, and she vanished from view. Before he could recover, Cheng Xiao reappeared at Ye Lingling's flank, moving with lethal grace. 2 shadowy sleeve blades shot forward, aimed straight at Ye Lingling's heart. Alarm flashed in Ye Lingling's eyes, her limbs constricted with icy fear. Then, at the very last instant, another figure darted between attacker and target. A pair of resonant clangs rang out as Cheng Xiao's blades struck the newcomer's armor and were deflected harmlessly to the stone floor. The swords hit the ground with dull thuds. Tang San stared in disbelief at the scene unfolding before him. How is that even possible? He muttered, heart hammering. Cheng Xiao, having blocked the attack with effortless poise, pivoted to face her would-be victim, her eyes blazing with unspoken intent. In that charged silence, Tang San realized he had underestimated the situation and the people he thought he had under his control. Cheng Xiao crouched to inspect the cracked spirit blade that had been struck by Ye Lingling's hidden arrow. His brow furrowed briefly before he slipped the damaged dagger back into its soul guide. Then he straightened and looked over his shoulder at Ye Lingling. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Ye Lingling blinked, startled by his concern, then shook her head. "I'm fine, thanks to you." A faint smile touched Cheng Xiao's lips, but his normally tranquil eyes flashed with cold determination. "Then the game ends here." He snapped his fingers once. The sharp click echoed through the arena. At that moment, the very ground beneath them seemed to ripple, and dozens of shadowy figures erupted from the earth. Dark, mist-like soul beasts swirled into view, but the most striking was one that reared up in the center, the grotesque human-faced demon spider, its 8 barbed legs glinting with malevolent intent. Tang San staggered back, eyes wide. "What are those?" He stared, dumbfounded, as the line of ebony creatures shifted in unison. When his gaze fell on the demon spider, his heart pounded. This was the very beast from which he had claimed his 3rd spirit ring and harvested those 8 spiritual spines. Now, in its shadowy form, he could feel the same corrupt, sinister aura radiating from it. The arena front held deathly silent as everyone awaited what would happen next. "Oh, my apologies," Cheng Xiao said with an easy smile. "Your external soul bone seems to share a link with the human-faced demon spider in my shadow soul beast." Tang San felt his blood chill at those words. The spider before him was clearly stronger than the one he'd killed before. If they dueled, he'd be the one to pay the price. But cornered, he would have to risk it. His gaze hardened, and 8 purple-tipped spider spears erupted from his back. Ghostly shadows whirled beneath his feet as he launched himself toward Cheng Xiao and the circle of shadow soul beasts surrounding him. "Come on," Tang San taunted as he closed the distance. "The human-faced demon spider's been waiting just for you." Unfazed, Cheng Xiao merely let his mind flow, and his shadow soldiers obeyed, moving as one. Leading the charge was the human-faced demon spider itself. Though bound as a servant to his will, its primal hatred for human soul masters still burned in its DNA. Its eyes flared red with murderous intent. With earth-shaking force, each of Tang San's spider spears crashed against the demon spider's armored shell. The blows hammered the ground underfoot, sending tremors through the clearing. In retaliation, the spider's 2 colossal front legs, razor-sharp like twin scythes, slashed through the air, aiming to tear Tang San apart. Dust kicked up around them as steel met chitin in a furious clash of wills and strength, the forest echoing with the thunderous rhythm of battle. A pulse of murderous intent rippled through the air as the demon spiders reared up. The moment the human-faced demon spider lunged, Tang San's 8 spider lances behind him quivered, as if stirred by some silent command. He halted mid-dash toward Cheng Xiao, propelled himself skyward, and the lances wreathed like living serpents. In an instant, the 4 forward-pointing spears shot out at blinding speed, their razor-sharp tips shimmering with cold light as they drove straight for the spider's forelegs. But the instant steel met chitin, Tang San's face drained of color. He looked up in stunned disbelief, and found himself staring into those abyssal, pitch-black eyes of the human-faced demon spider. Chapter 83, The Duel of Souls concludes. From the Fighting Spirit viewing gallery, the masters stared in disbelief as dozens of pitch-black shadow soul beasts materialized, creatures none of them had ever seen before. In all their decades of cultivation, no one had ever witnessed such an ability. Simply summoning shadow soul beasts was a feat unheard of, and yet here stood Cheng Xiao, barely into his 30s in soul power level, commanding more than 10 of them at once. They shuddered at the thought of what he might achieve once his soul power reached even greater heights. On the soul fighting stage, Tang San could only retreat in terror under the assault of the man-faced demon spider. His external soul bone, still in the process of fusing with his own body, hadn't reached its full potential, and the techniques he could muster were far weaker than he'd hoped. To make matters worse, The 8 spider spears he wielded were themselves spun from the demon spider's own bone marrow. Now, Tang San hurled those very spears back at their origin. What was this, if not striking at yourself with your own shattered bones? Tang San bounced across the clearing like a cornered mouse, and with each movement he made, the man-faced demon spider's fury only grew. How dare this human soul master wield the bones of his own kind against him? In a flash, the spider's 2 massive forelegs lashed out, unleashing a shard of frigid energy that struck Tang San's 8 spider spear, still resonating with soul bone power, head-on. A thunderous crack split the air, and Tang San was sent hurtling backward. He hadn't yet fully fused with the 8 spider soul bones, and the demon spider's blow nearly shattered his weapon. Pain seared through his back as he hit the ground, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood, staining the earth beneath him. From the raised viewing platform, Flanders stared in stunned silence. This isn't even the true man-faced demon spider, and yet its strength rivals the one Tang San absorbed. The elder beside him said nothing. Confidence drained from his face, leaving only a grim, uncertain glare. Tang San's fingers curled tightly around the rough wooden rail, and he couldn't bring himself to meet the eyes of the soul-fighting stage disciples watching him. The arena felt suddenly cavernous, every breath a reminder of his failure. How could this happen? He murmured to himself. He rose from the blood-stained floor and reached for the 8 spider spears strapped to his back. He'd always prided himself on their legendary resilience, yet a single strike from the man-faced demon spider had nearly shattered them. Splinters of dark iron lay scattered where the blow had landed. Dismay chilled his bones. His master had once boasted that, with the power of the 8 spider soul bones, Tang San could overwhelm most foes within just a few exchanges, but here he was, staggering backward in defeat long before the match should have ended. The truth stung sharper than any spear. His external soul bone had never fully fused. Without it, his force was a fraction of what it could have been. His face, already smeared with dust and blood, had gone deathly pale. Sweat beaded at his temples. In the gallery, Flanders, ever poised in his role as acting headmaster, leaned forward, his voice raised just enough to be heard. "Young man, enough. Concede." But Flanders held no true claim over him. Tang San's loyalties lay with his real teacher, Yu Xiaogang, whose impassive figure sat motionless a few rows back. Even Dean Chang, the respected elder of the Spirit Hall, seemed at a loss for words. Forced to steel himself, Tang San inhaled, trying to gather the last fragments of his shattered pride. Around him, the crowd's murmurs swelled like waves. Admitting defeat now would spare him further embarrassment, but it would mean yielding to an enemy he still believed he could overcome. He closed his eyes and saw the 8 shadowy forms of his spider spears spinning in his mind, each bristling with latent power. They were more than mere weapons. They were the legacy of his family's darkest mysteries. Failure wasn't an option. With a sharp exhale, Tang San let the 8 spider spears snap into his hands, their shafts humming with barely contained energy. Dust motes glittered in the afternoon sun as he lifted his chin. He would fight on, no matter the cost. The man-faced demon spider had underestimated him once. Let it be the last time. The arena fell silent as Tang San stepped forward, determination burning in his eyes. The true test was only just beginning. Tang San stole a quick glance at his master. The man's face was ashen, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles had turned white. But he still hadn't called for Tang San to concede. Could Tang San really have another secret weapon? "Give it up, Tang San," Cheng Xiao called, his voice echoing across the arena. He strode forward, his shadow soldiers falling in around him. Though each was only a modestly powerful spirit beast, as they trailed the king, their strength would swell, and they closed the distance with relentless precision. Such was the terror of shadow soldiers. Tang San's lips curved into a faint smile. Admit defeat? His eyes gleamed with a soft purple light. He'd known all along that his 8 spider soul bones wouldn't win this duel. He'd saved his true ace until now. "Too early to celebrate," he said quietly. With a smooth motion, he produced a small, jet-black box from beneath his cloak. The Tang sect's own mechanical marvel, the Jude Divine crossbow, sighed into being in his hand. He flipped open the latch. A symphony of gears clicking into place filled the air, so rapid and intricate that spectators' vision wavered for a heartbeat. Then came the unmistakable pop of hidden mechanisms springing to life. Across the arena, even Cheng Xiao hesitated. The final act had begun. Even Cheng Xiao's normally unflappable composure wavered for the briefest moment, and Flanders in the crowd went pale as Tang San's attack erupted with inhuman speed. "No, he means to kill," Flanders gasped. In the Imperial Fighting Team's VIP box, Qin Ming sprang to his feet. Tang San's black box had just unleashed a deadly volley of bolts. Shards of broken glass crackled underfoot as Qin Ming swept them aside, determined to leap onto the soul-fighting stage and save Cheng Xiao. But on stage, Cheng Xiao showed neither fear nor haste. His cool gaze met the Zhu Divine Crossbow, renowned for its power to annihilate a level 40 Soulmaster in a single salvo with a hint of disdain. 16 arrows screamed from the crossbow like crackling lightning bolts, aimed straight for his heart. In that instant, the arena floor trembled. Dark shadows erupted from the earth, rising in a churning tide of phantom warriors. At their forefront loomed a 3-meter-tall, ape-like soul beast, the ultimate crown jewel among Cheng Xiao's 10,000-year-old shadow soldiers. Pap-tap! Each lethal bolt struck a shadow soldier's intangible form, clattering harmlessly to the ground. Tang San's proud volley had met an impenetrable wall of ghosts. How is this possible? Tang San stared in disbelief. His final trump card, the Tang sect's treasured Zhuje Divine Crossbow, hadn't even penetrated Cheng Xiao's fur. Before he could recover from his shock, Cheng Xiao blurred forward. A massive fist, wreathed in swirling black smoke, smashed through the air barrier and landed squarely on Tang San's chest. With a thunderous crack, Tang San was sent flying like a cannonball, hurtling off the soul-fighting platform. He hit the ground hard, desperately attempting to rise, but his soul power and internal strength were utterly spent. Overwhelmed by exhaustion, he slumped unconscious. Under the arena's rules, falling from the platform meant immediate defeat. With Tang San eliminated, Cheng Xiao's attention shifted to Dai Mubai. In swift succession, he delivered a final, decisive blow, kicking Dai Mubai off the platform as well. And with that, the 2-on-2 showdown came to a close. As the announcer's voice boomed through the arena, "Victory to the challenger!" The Shrek instructors rushed forward to stand beneath the stage, flanking Tang San and Dai Mubai. These were their finest students. Defeat was unthinkable. With the match officially over, Cheng Xiao raised his hand in salute. The phalanx of shadow soldiers flickered and dissolved back into darkness. Without a backward glance, he vaulted gracefully from the fighting platform and walked off alongside Ye Lingling. Their poised departure electrified the crowd. Spectators thrived on the drama and unpredictability of such contests, and as Cheng Xiao and Lingling receded from view, the entire arena erupted into a single thunderous chant, "Shadow Begonia Combination! Shadow Begonia Combination!" The roar of approval echoed long after the pair had gone, sealing their triumph in the hearts of everyone present. Chapter 84. Beating the Younger First Then the Older. When the soul duel finally ended, Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling made their way back to the Imperial Fighting Team's VIP box. No sooner had they entered than Qin Ming hurried over, worry etched across his face. "Cheng Xiao, are you all right?" he asked anxiously. Cheng Xiao shook his head with a relieved laugh. "I'm fine. Those hidden weapons couldn't touch me." Qin Ming let out a breath he didn't even know he was holding. If anything had happened to Cheng Xiao, the team would have been in serious trouble. Before Qin Ming could say more, Yufeng bounded into the box, eyes shining. "Cheng Xiao, that was incredible," he exclaimed. "Watching you protect Lingling was so impressive, even the boss would have a hard time topping that." He swept a dramatic bow at the line of shadow soldiers standing behind Cheng Xiao. "And that shadow soul beast of yours, totally unstoppable." Over the months they'd spent together, everyone on the Imperial Fighting Team had come to admire Cheng Xiao's shadow soldiers, but no one more so than Yufeng. Cheng Xiao grinned and folded his arms. "Careful, Yufeng. If you keep talking, you'll start sounding like you think the boss can't keep up with me." Yufeng laughed, holding up his hands in surrender. All right. I still bow down to your skills. But you have to admit, today you were on fire." Ye Lingling slipped an arm through Cheng Xiao's and gave him a grateful smile. "Thank you for having my back, Xiao." Cheng Xiao's eyes softened as he returned her smile. We all cover each other's backs. That's what being a team is about. As laughter and easy banter filled the VIP box, it was clear that, for now at least, the Imperial fighting team's bond had never been stronger. Do you think I don't want to compete? Yu Tianheng snapped at Yu Feng, his displeasure showing. All he'd wanted was a chance to steal the spotlight, play the hero, rescue Dugu Yan. But in a two-person soul duel, he and Dugu Yan had never lost or even been on the back foot. All right, that's enough, Qin Ming said, raising a hand to calm the growing clamor. He cleared his throat, then offered his trademark grin. You've all worked hard tonight. I'm sitting out the team match. Feel free to go have fun, but don't forget we've got training first thing tomorrow. Understood? Understood, the Huangdo team answered in unison. Moments later, the Imperial fighting team filed out of the Soto Sol arena. Yu Tianheng and Dugu Yan slipped off for some shopping, trailed by Osluo and Yu Feng. The Shi brothers headed back to the hotel for extra practice. Qin Ming led Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling toward the restaurant he'd scoped out earlier. At a fork in the road, the three of them stopped and stared. The place was already packed. Cheng Xiao, Lingling, you two stay put. I'm going to check it out. Qin Ming scratched his nose, gave them an awkward grin, and slipped into the crowd. Within seconds, his figure was swallowed by a tide of bodies. Ye Lingling watched him disappear, then glanced at Cheng Xiao. Teacher Qin Ming really is different from other soul masters, she murmured. Cheng Xiao smiled softly. Yes, most make a show of their strength. He's more like a mountain spring, clear, humble, and surprisingly powerful. Before they could say more, a piercing eagle's cry shattered the chatter around them. Dust swirled as a hefty figure plummeted from above, landing squarely in front of them with a thunderous thud. Instinctively, Cheng Xiao leapt forward, shielding Ye Lingling behind him. The newcomer towered before them, broad-shouldered, square-jawed, and clad in a dark robe that billowed from the impact. His steel-gray eyes scanned them coolly. Cheng Xiao's voice rang out, sharp as ice. I didn't realize the Dean of Shrek Academy made such grand entrances. Shrek Academy? Ye Lingling repeated, her brow furrowing. The name stirred something in her memory, though she couldn't place it. The man's presence crackled with raw authority, and despite himself, her heart raced. Flande, Aris stood before them, clad head to toe in black, his sharp features framed by a pair of black-rimmed crystal glasses. This was no ordinary teacher, but the Dean of Shrek Academy, a level 78 cat-eagle fighting soul saint. His voice was cool, yet carried an unmistakable edge. Now that you know who I am, you still have the gall to mistreat my students? Cheng Xiao met his gaze without a flicker of fear. The rumors about you protecting the weak are true, he said quietly. I've just borne witness to it myself. But why spell it out? Whenever a junior is harmed, their seniors inevitably rise to defend them. After all, I'm the Dean of Shrek Academy, and it seems I've become complicit by standing aside while one of our own was beaten. As Cheng Xiao finished speaking, 7 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 3 jet black, slowly materialized around Flanders, each one orbiting his silhouette like miniature moons. Without hesitation, Flanders activated the power of his rings. Cheng Xiao didn't flinch. He was ready to face whatever challenge the Academy's fierce dean chose to throw at him. Dean Flanders spread his arms and said with a mocking lilt, Go on, Dean. Since you insist on defending your students, why don't you take a swing at him? It won't matter in the end. Shrek Academy is finished anyway. The smile on Flanders' face vanished in an instant, replaced by a hard glint of fury. What did you just say? He snapped. His voice dropped to a growl. Boy, watch your tongue. If you're not careful, you'll be 6 feet under by nightfall. This isn't some playground scuffle. Cheng Xiao merely inclined his head, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. His dark purple eyes remained calm and unflinching as they met Flanders' murderous glare. For a moment, Flanders found himself disarmed by that serene confidence. Common sense dictated that any low-level soul master facing a high-level soul master would quake in fear. Yet here stood Cheng Xiao, unwavered, almost detached. It struck Flanders that something didn't add up. He'd arrived with full backing from the headmaster and Tang San's reports, certain of his advantage. Now, standing toe-to-toe with this composed youth, he realized his intelligence might be flawed after all. Aren't you afraid of me? Flanders called, advancing on Cheng Xiao with measured strides. His enormous eagle wings unfurled behind him, his pupils dilated, and his fingers curled into talons, every inch the predator. "Afraid of you? Of course I am," Cheng Xiao replied, taking 2 steps back as though he might flee. "You're a soul saint. 1 slap from you and I'd be dead." Still, his purple eyes remained steady, betraying no real terror. He was acutely aware that any sign of genuine fear would play into Flanders' hands. At the same time, he didn't want to provoke a full-scale conflict that might drag Shrek Academy into the fray. So he struck a balance, enough feigned panic to keep Flanders guessing, but not so much that he would actually flinch. Flanders hesitated, irritation flickering across his face. The boy's calm defiance only fueled his anger. After a tense moment, he snarled, "Don't think you can toy with me. Doesn't matter who's backing you, you'll feel my wrath today." In the next instant, an overwhelming wave of pressure exploded from Flanders' body, shaking the ground beneath them. The weight crashed into Cheng Xiao like a mountain pressing down on him, driving the air from his lungs and forcing him toward his knees. Flanders let out a low, amused chuckle. "At your current level, you still want to resist a soul saint's pressure?" With that, he ratcheted up the force, not unleashing all of it, but tightening his grip on Cheng Xiao's breath, determined to see what audacity had driven this youth to challenge him. Cheng Xiao's legs trembled as shadow energy roared through his veins, and even his sacred aura surged in response. He teetered on the edge of ordering his shadow soldiers to overwhelm Flanders when a gentle voice broke through the tension from behind. "Dean Flanders, Long T, me no see, without warning." Chapter 85, Flanders Fails to Deceive. "Ha, I wondered if you'd forgotten me." As Qin Ming approached, Flanders exhaled, easing the crushing weight of his soul power. The tumult of energy around him stilled, and the 4-eyed cat-eagle spirit that had loomed behind him dissipated like mist. With his hands folded behind his back, Flanders gave Qin Ming a cool, assessing look. "I've been in Soto City long enough. If I hadn't put a threat to this boy, would you ever have shown yourself?" He turned next to Cheng Xiao, a faint smile curling his lips. Though Flanders favored his disciple, he wasn't utterly unreasonable. Had Cheng Xiao or his students started a fight without cause, Flanders would have felt justified in giving them a stern lesson. But he knew Cheng Xiao's temperament well. A few bruises or a wounded pride from teasing a little girl barely registered with him. As long as Cheng Xiao remained alive, he would keep Ma Hongjin's reckless impulses in check. And, judging by the spirit duel that had just ended, Cheng Xiao more than possessed the power to kill Ma Hongjin if he chose to. In fact, Flanders had to grudgingly admit that Ma Hongjin had just saved someone's life. Cheng Xiao remained silent, meeting his master's gaze without a word. Qin Ming noticed the sudden chill between Dean Flanders and Cheng Xiao and forced a nervous smile. "Dean, I wanted to surprise you," he offered. Dean Flanders shook his head. "Cheng Xiao, I already told you at the restaurant. Lingling and you go ahead and eat. I need to speak with Qin Ming alone." Cheng Xiao inclined his head and fell in step beside Ye Lingling as they strolled toward the entrance. Halfway there, Lingling glanced at her friend. "Aren't you mad?" Cheng Xiao's lips curved in a hint of a smile. "Of course I'm mad, but I don't like wearing my feelings on my sleeve." "Fair enough." Once the two disappeared inside, Flanders turned back to Qin Ming, brow furrowed. "Qin Ming, what's Cheng Xiao's story? I thought Royal Tiando Academy didn't have that many restrictions on new students." Qin Ming let out a short laugh, masking his anxiety. "Dean, you scared me for a second. Cheng Xiao's background isn't ordinary. The person shielding him, well, it's His Royal Highness himself." "His Royal Highness? You mean the Crown Prince?" Flanders' voice rose in surprise. Qin Ming nodded. "Yes, the Crown Prince of Silvermoon." For a moment, the dean simply stared, processing the weight of that revelation. Silvermoon's royal family rarely interfered with academy affairs, certainly not to enroll their own heirs. Yet there was Cheng Xiao, quiet and unassuming, under the prince's protection. Flanders exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "All right, let's get back inside before they wonder what we're up to." With that, the two men followed into the restaurant, each carrying new concerns about the boy they'd just left. "Shui Qinghe?" Dean Flanders froze for a moment, then exclaimed, "Are you saying this boy, Cheng Xiao, was personally recommended by His Highness, Crown Prince Shui Qinghe of Tiandao? Qin Mingdao met his gaze steadily. Yes, when Cheng Xiao enrolled at the Tiandao Royal Academy, it was on the Crown Prince's direct recommendation. That's why I said his background isn't simple. No ordinary student would receive such an honor. At the news, Flanders felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. In the entire Tiandao Empire, he could count on one hand those with ties to the royal family, and he'd come dangerously close to killing one of them tonight. He wiped cold sweat from his brow. My heavens, that's serious. Qin Ming, do you think Cheng Xiao will hold a grudge against me? Qin Mingdao shook his head gently. I doubt it. From everything I've observed, Cheng Xiao isn't petty. But Dean, what you pulled off tonight, it was incredibly reckless. Flanders managed a bitter smile. You're right, it was entirely my fault. Dean Flanders looked as if he'd seen a ghost. When I heard you were in Soto City, I nearly lost my mind. Qin Ming offered a reassuring clap on Dean's shoulder. Relax, Dean. You didn't do anything to harm him. He'll be fine. The Dean leaned in, a mischievous glint in his eyes. By the way, Qin Ming, if we can persuade Cheng Xiao to join Shrek Academy, I'll personally apologize to him. How does that sound? Flanders then launched into a polished pitch about why Cheng Xiao belonged at Shrek, and how much the Academy would benefit from his enrollment. Qin Ming listened politely, but inside he was shaking his head. Although Shrek Academy had pioneered some innovative teaching techniques, in almost every other respect, it trailed far behind the prestigious Tiandao Royal Academy. He kept those thoughts to himself. After all, Flanders was his dean, and Qin Ming had no authority to pledge anything for Cheng Xiao, especially since the young star had already left Tiandao Royal Academy in hopes of building a name here. Tiandao Royal Academy, a relatively obscure school, would never have tolerated such heavy-handed tactics. Qin Ming's brow furrowed as he cleared his throat. Dean, if you're looking to recruit talent, this isn't the way to go about it. Even the Wuhan Palace wouldn't be this direct. Flanders flushed at the rebuke. He quickly regained his composure, cleared his throat again, and offered a sheepish smile. You're right, of course. Qin Ming, why don't you join me for a meal? It's been years since we've had a proper chat. The restaurant buzzed with activity. From their table by the window, Cheng Xiao watched Qin Ming fall in step with Dean Shrek as they walked away. He turned to Ye Lingling, who still hovered over her untouched plate. Go ahead and start eating, he said. Teacher Qin Ming and Dean Shrek have gone off together. Ye Lingling gave a soft and began taking dainty bites. Cheng Xiao picked up his chopsticks and did the same, occasionally nudging a piece of vegetable toward Ye Lingling. She accepted each one with a gentle smile before tucking it into her mouth. Chapter 10. Just as the two inside the restaurant were settling into a comfortable conversation, two figures materialized at the mouth of the alley outside. One was gaunt and upright, the other broad-shouldered and solid. The lean one stepped forward into the dim light. Stab blood, said the tall Douluo in a low, rumbling voice. Tell the young master exactly what happened here tonight. In the meantime, stay hidden beside that boy. Don't let anyone spot you. I'll be back soon. The stockier man, Arcray Douluo, known by the title Stab Blood, gave a curt nod. A wavering shimmer spread through the air around Snake Spear Douluo Yulong, and in the next instant he vanished. Left alone, Arcray melted back into the deeper shadows of the alley, cloaked by darkness until his return. Night still held Shrek Academy in its quiet grip when we shift to the boys' dormitory. Tang San lay on a rough wooden bed, his face as pale as parchment beneath the flickering lantern light. The 8 spider spears had taken a brutal toll on his body. His torso was swathed in layers of white bandages, giving him the appearance of a living mummy. The bed beside him creaked as Dai Mubai stirred. He didn't immediately open his eyes. When he finally did, they stared blankly ahead, unfocused. He sat up slowly, legs dangling off the edge, hands resting limply at his sides, as though he were waking from a long, disorienting dream. Chapter 10. Oscar and Tang San had originally been sharing a room, but after both Tang San and Dai Mubai were injured, Oscar moved into Dai Mubai's quarters and began living with Ma Hongjun instead. Now the room lay quiet except for the occasional groan of creaking floorboards. Dai Mubai sat perched on his bed, eyes half closed, tending his wounds. Tang San was dozing quietly in the corner. The silence stretched on until the door slid open. Ma Hongjun swaggered in, tossing his shoulders, and settled himself beside Dai Mubai with a brazen grin. "Boss Dai," he drawled, "don't look so glum. After losing that soul battle, I popped a few of Teacher Xiaoxin's soul jelly beans, and I'm back, in business. Okay, it's not quite as strong as before, but good enough. Today's my day off. Let's hit a brothel." "Hit a brothel?" Dai Mubai's head snapped up. "You mean you still have that ability?" Ma Hongjun laughed, flashing a cocky smirk. "Come on, don't mock me. It may not be at full power, but it'll do the job. So, are you in or out? 'Cause if you're staying here sulking, I'll go by myself." Dai Mubai frowned, clearly torn. He studied his friend's face, weighing the offer and the risks. Finally, his voice came low and cautious. "What exactly do you plan to do there?" Dai Mubai stopped in his tracks, a bitter laugh escaping him as he imagined Juju King's frosty glare. "So I'm just supposed to wait around until she hates me even more." Ma Hongjun shook his head in mock disbelief. "Boss Dai, when did you start pining after a woman? You used to have more appetites." Dai's gaze hardened. "You're right. She looks down on me, so why should I keep chasing her favor? Let's go blow off some steam at the brothel." "Now you're talking!" Ma Hongjun whooped, slapping Dai Mubai on the shoulder. Then he glanced over at Tang San, who was lounging on the bed. "Third brother, want me to arrange some door-to-door service for you?" Tang San sat up, puzzled. "Door-to-door service?" Ma Hongjun scratched his head. "You've never heard of it? Forget it. Boss Dai and I are going. You can stay here and enjoy the quiet." With that, the two friends strode toward the door, leaving Tang San alone in the sudden hush. For a moment he stared after them, wondering if a bit of solitude might do him some good, before realizing he already missed the chaos. "I'll make it up to you when I return," Ma Hongjun promised, his voice brimming with determination. Without another word, he grabbed Dai Mubai by the arm and hurried him out of the room. Left alone, Tang San lay on the bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. Chapter 86. Once I find the right approach, I know I'll be able to beat him. "Mistress, how are you feeling?" No sooner had Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun departed than Master appeared at the door of Tang San's room. "I'm much better now, Master." Tang San shook his head, relieved by her presence. Yet despite his words, his expression was troubled. "But why can't I defeat Cheng Xiao even once? I've tried every trick I know, and still he outmatches me." Master regarded him quietly for a moment before asking, "What do you think is holding you back?" Tang San paused, surprised by the question. After a heartbeat, he replied, "Is it because my blue-silver grass spirit power is too weak? Its poison works on everyone else, but against Cheng Xiao, it's as if I'm striking the air." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration mounting. "At our current levels, I have 0 advantage. Even the strength granted by my 8 spider soul bones barely phases his shadow soul beasts, and none of the hidden weapons I've crafted can even leave a scratch on him." Master nodded slowly, folding her arms as she considered his words. The challenge before Tang San was greater than he'd realized, and finding its solution would take more than raw power alone. "I know that unless I unlock my second martial spirit, I won't stand a chance against him," Tang San growled, eyes blazing with frustration. He clenched his fists at the thought of Cheng Xiao's special spirit. In its presence, blue-silver grass, his signature technique, was rendered useless. Every attack he'd mastered relied on controlling his grass, and without that control, not a single blade could harm Cheng Xiao. If he couldn't bind or ensnare his opponent, how could he even score a scratch? His master listened gravely, then let out a long, resigned sigh. "Xiao-san, we both underestimated him back at Nodding College. Cheng Xiao's beast spirit isn't like any we've studied. That's how he lured us into his trap." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Most beast spirits simply boost their user's attributes, strength, speed, senses, by emulating the creature's natural gifts. Cheng Xiao's, however, goes a step further. It actually absorbs the abilities of weapon spirits, effectively turning him into a living weapon. I believe his spirit has mutated, giving him combat powers that far exceed those of an ordinary soul master." "Don't forget," the master began, his voice calm but firm, "when you sparred with him, he never once summoned a shadow soul beast. And yet his martial soul was called a shadow soldier. That tells me his martial soul has undergone a mutation. He not only wields the power of a beast martial soul, but also fights directly with his soul, just like a spirit soldier. Hearing his teacher's confident explanation, Tang San, who'd felt deflated after his defeat, couldn't help but feel some relief. Of course, he couldn't beat Cheng Xiao. His opponent's martial soul had evolved beyond anything he'd anticipated. His teacher's regret was palpable. If he'd known this earlier, he would have drilled him harder, revealing just how formidable and unique such an ability could be. Even if Cheng Xiao wasn't a twin martial soul, under proper guidance he'd surely leave his mark on the entire continent one day. The two remained silent for a long moment before Tang San finally broke the stillness. "Teacher," he said thoughtfully, "I think I've pinpointed exactly how I lost to Cheng Xiao. If my martial spirit weren't blue silver grass, and his spirit hadn't awakened into its mutated form, yesterday's defeat would never have happened." Tang San's eyes gleamed with determination. "Master, if it's at all possible, I want to begin training my second martial spirit right away." The master's face stiffened, his expression turning grave. "Xiao-san, you mustn't rush into this," he said firmly. "Your greatest advantage is your dual martial spirits. You need to first survive the rigorous trials of the blue-silver grass spirit. Only when you've mastered it and outgrown its weakest period will Cheng Xiao truly stand no chance against you when you switch to your second spirit." He leaned forward, his voice low and measured. "Besides, remember that Cheng Xiao's spirit has its own limits. Summoning shadow soul beasts demands tremendous soul power. Victory in a duel depends on more than raw strength. A large part of his success against you came from our lack of understanding of his full capabilities. Now that we've uncovered his abilities, we can prepare for the upcoming Continental Senior Soul Master Elite competition. Once I've fully analyzed his martial soul, I'll design specialized training to neutralize his unique powers. Don't forget, this contest isn't just about one-on-one or two-on-two duels. The real test comes in the team battles. For you, Tang San, your mission is straightforward. Handle his teammates. That will be more than enough." At his master's confident analysis, Tang San felt a surge of excitement. His teacher was absolutely right. Cheng Xiao had defeated him not because he was simply stronger, but because Tang San didn't yet understand Cheng Xiao's martial soul. Now that he did, he wouldn't be so easily outwitted, and once his own soul power reached the threshold to awaken his second martial soul, he would have nothing to fear from Cheng Xiao. All that remained was to accelerate his soul power cultivation and push through the vulnerable phase of the blue-silver grass. With that shame washed away, he would finally prove his true strength. Just as the two masters and their apprentices were puzzling over how to crack Cheng Xiao's power and find a solution, the dormitory door slid open. Flanders glanced at Tang San, who lay sprawled on the bed, then flicked a smirk at his master. "Xiao Gang, come out here. There's something I need to tell you." Master Xiao Gang nodded once, offered Tang San some quiet reassurance, and followed Flanders outside. Standing in the soft glow of the morning sun, Flanders finally spoke. "So how's Tang San? He'll live." Xiao Gang's tone was sharp, even as he refused to meet Flanders's gaze. "But you, where were you last night? Tang San and Dai Mubai were both badly hurt, and those girls just left them lying there. Oscar and I had to drag them back ourselves." Flanders waved a hand dismissively. "Don't worry, Xiaoxin's jelly bean remedy is working wonders. They polished off Oscar's giant sausage breakfast like nothing happened. Although, Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjin snuck off first thing this morning." "Snuck off?" Xiao Gang frowned. "Where could they have gone? I thought Dai Mubai was still too injured to move on his own. Why did he dash off into the wild again?" "How should I know?" Master sighed, glancing at Flanders. "All right, what's on your mind?" Flanders was quiet for a moment, then spoke in a low voice. "I've been watching that boy, Cheng Xiao. He's remarkable, real raw talent, and he has the full backing of the Tiando royal family." Master frowned. "And yet last night we couldn't sway him to our side. It's frustrating to lose someone like him." "Sway him?" Flanders raised an eyebrow. "We didn't just fail to recruit him. We couldn't even trick him into taking our disciple oath. With the Tiando royals supporting him, what chance do we have of getting him into Shrek Academy?" Master chuckled darkly. especially considering the enmity between him and Tang San back at Nodding Academy. Even if the gates of Shrek stood wide open, I doubt Cheng Xiao would ever set foot inside. Master Xiao let out a quiet sigh. I really wanted to take him on as my disciple, but he showed no interest in my theories, and even if he had been willing, well, his moral compass leaves much to be desired. Flanders gave the old man's shoulder a sympathetic pat. Don't blame yourself, master. It's just regrettable we didn't recruit such a prodigy into Shrek Academy before the Continental Elite Soul Masters tournament. He'll give our students a run for their money. Rest easy, Flanders, Master Xiao said, a confident smile slowly forming on his lips. I've already begun analyzing Cheng Xiao's martial spirit. Once I fully understand its capabilities, Shrek's students will no longer have any cause for fear. Flanders nodded. Very well, I'll leave this matter in your capable hands. As for Xiao-san and the others, their injuries aren't serious. Let them rest for 2 days, and then we'll kick off the second phase of training. At the Academy's council chamber, the senior instructor's voice carried a note of urgency. Our fund reserves are nearly depleted. If we don't enter the upcoming soul fighting tournament, the Academy won't have enough resources to continue operating. And make sure everyone holds on to the gold soul coins they received from Wuhan Palace. Every coin counts right now. The headmaster inclined his head in agreement. Understood. Meanwhile, in Tiando City's prince's mansion, a gentle breeze drifted through a secluded pavilion. Qian Renshui stood alone, her pale gold gown whispering against the marble floor. The wind lifted strands of her long, golden hair, letting them ripple like sunlight on a still lake. Palace attendants had long since been replaced by agents from the Elder's Palace, their watchful eyes ensuring no one disturbed the princess in her solitude. To the casual observer, she was Shui Qinghe in every detail, down to the delicate curve of her shoulders and the quiet grace of her posture. Yet those few who truly knew her understood that this persona was only one of many masks she wore. At times she would slip into the guise of an innocent country girl, her laughter like wind chimes in spring, though such moments were as fleeting as morning mist. Qian Renshui lifted her gaze to the vast cobalt sky. Her golden eyes, cool and unyielding, reflected not the serenity of the heavens above, but the icy determination that drove her every step. Qian Renshui stood perfectly still for a moment, then turned with effortless grace. Her glossy red lips curved into a faint smile, and when she spoke, her voice was like a clear bell. Elder Snake Spear, reveal yourself. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the air before her shimmered. A tall, slender figure in gleaming golden armor materialized, kneeling on one knee in respectful salute. Young mistress, he intoned, voice low and steady. Qian Renshui's brow creased in mild irritation. Didn't I order you to tail Cheng Xiao at all times, observe his every move, and ensure his safety? Why have you returned without him? Douluo Yulong, the Snake Spear elder, bowed his head even lower. Forgive my lapse, young mistress. I carry urgent news. While Cheng Xiao was in Soto City, the dean of Shrek Academy openly threatened him. Although no harm came of it this time, it's clear the dean now suspects Cheng Xiao's true identity, that he is Elder Ju's apprentice. I thought you should inform Elder Ju before the situation worsens. By the gods, Soul Saint? Qian Renshui's eyes widened in surprise, her cheeks flushing for an instant before she snapped back to cold composure. How dare a mere Soul Saint lay hands on my people? Snake Spear Douluo swallowed hard as he felt the ripple of soul power radiating from her. His throat bobbed, and in his mind he fretted. When did the young mistress ever lose her temper over a stranger? Could it be? Putting aside his doubts, he drew a steadying breath. Young mistress, if that's the case, I will send word to Elder Ju at once. Given his temperament, he will not rest until he has avenged young master Cheng Xiao's Ano. Qian Renshui considered this for a moment. Very well. Inform Elder Ju, and if you can, bring Great Elder Ghost Douluo along as well. Cheng Xiao's very existence may yet work to our advantage. I understand, young mistress. Snake Spear Douluo inclined his head. I will depart immediately. Cheng Xiao is a valuable asset. We must ensure his safety. Satisfied, Qian Renshui waved a graceful hand. A faint glimmer danced in her golden eyes as Snake Spear Douluo melted away into the shadows, dispatched on his urgent errand. Snake Spear Douluo paused only long enough to give a respectful nod before his figure dissolved into mist. Once he had vanished completely, Qian Renshui rose with serene elegance. She lifted her slender, jade-like hands, paler than spring moonlight, and watched as golden and onyx energies swirled together in her palm. With a silent pulse, they coalesced into a sword unlike any angelic blade she'd ever known. Its long, pitch-black blade seemed to devour all light, while the gilded hilt shimmered with a sacred brilliance. Qian Renshui lowered her phoenix-shaped eyes and studied the weapon with a storm of conflicting emotions. After a moment's hesitation, she let out a soft sigh. With a graceful flick of her wrist, the sword dissolved into the air, leaving nothing but the faintest echo of its power. Soto City. In the weeks that followed, the Imperial Fight Team reigned supreme in the Soto Spirit Arena. Every spirit they summoned walked away victorious, without a single defeat. Yet even this unbroken streak paled beside the legendary feats of Cheng Xiao, whose prowess remained unrivaled. From the moment the Imperial Fighting Team set foot in Soto City's Grand Soul Arena, defeat simply wasn't in their vocabulary. Match after match, they claimed absolute victory, turning the city's nobles into instant millionaires, and leaving the arena itself hemorrhaging gold. Word spread fast: bet on the Imperial Fighting Team, and your pockets would overflow. Bet against them, and you might as well have thrown your money into the wind. Crowds swelled with every contest, eager to witness the team's latest triumph. But it was Cheng Xiao who stole the show. In every individual bout, he called forth his legion of shadow soldiers before the first bell rang. Opponents barely drew breath before the announcer's voice echoed across the arena, declaring Cheng victorious and the match over. No real combat required. By the end of the tournament, Soto City was whispering his name like a legend, the king of shadow soul beasts, the Shadow King. With a reputation so fearsome, each new challenger found the odds stacked ever more heavily in his favor. After all, how could you possibly defeat a man who never even needed to lift a finger? Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling had been virtually unstoppable, not only in the solo matches, but in doubles as well. Together, they'd set a new all-time winning streak in the Grand Spirit Combat Arena, and the announcement sent shockwaves through the crowd. Spectators and nobles, who had been banking on hefty returns from the Royal Spirit Team, found themselves reeling at the news. The Royals were preparing to depart Soto City, though no exact departure date had been disclosed. Qin Ming, the team's strategist, had quietly arranged the move. After so many months away, it was finally time to head back to Tiando City. Meanwhile, Shrek Academy had been taking great pains to steer clear of any encounters with the Royal Spirit Team, hoping to avoid outright conflict. Free of their most formidable rivals, the 7 Devils of Shrek Academy had continued their own winning ways. True to form, this morning the Shrek team strolled into the arena's registration area, ready to sign up for the next round of team battles. The team leader held up the Shrek 7 Devils insignia for inspection. The attendant looked him over, then asked politely, "Excuse me, are you the leader of the Shrek 7 Devils?" He frowned, his instincts warning him this might not bode well. "Yes, that's me. Is there a problem?" "Please hold on a moment," the attendant replied. "Our supervisor would like to see you." With that, he stood and hurried off toward the supervisor's office, leaving the leader alone in the hallway, the air suddenly thick with anticipation. Chapter 88. Giving Too Much. Shrek's team didn't have to wait long. In less than a minute, an attendant returned to the registration desk and handed back their fighting spirit badge. "Sorry to have kept you waiting, sir," he said politely before stepping aside. Manager Ao then approached, offering a warm smile and an outstretched hand. "Leader of the Shrek 7 Devils, may I have a moment of your time? I promise I won't keep you long." The team leader exchanged a glance with his comrades. After all, it had been Manager Ao who had tipped them off about the formidable Mad Fighting Team earlier, help that had turned out to be invaluable. He couldn't refuse now. "All right," the leader said, his expression neutral, though a faint, wary smile tugged at his lips. "What do you need?" He had expected this. Recently, the Shrek 7 Devils had been performing exceptionally well, second only to the Royal Fighting Team, and it was inevitable that the Grand Fighting Spirit Arena's officials would come calling. Manager Ao bowed slightly. "Thank you. I'll get straight to the point." Even though the boss disliked dealing with the Grand Arena, he knew better than to pick a fight with its organizers. Besides, lately they'd been raking in a fortune from arena events, and they'd already pocketed a small mountain of gold betting on the royal fighting team. After all, you've got to know where the wool comes from. So when Director Ao escorted him into a secluded conference room, the boss didn't protest. They eased onto leather sofas, the only sound the soft click of the door behind them. Director Ao's expression was uncharacteristically solemn as he cleared his throat. "Leader of the Shrek 7 Devils," he began, "I'd like to formally invite your team to participate in tonight's spirit contest on the main stage of the central arena. What do you think?" The boss leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Give me one good reason to take part," he said evenly. Director Ao forced a wry smile. "To be perfectly honest, sir." Chapter 7. The Last Throw. The wind rattled the window panes as Qinwei stepped into the team leader's study, his expression grim. "Team leader, the situation at the Grand Seoul Arena is far from hopeful." Leader Shen set aside the dossier he'd been reviewing and looked up. "Explain." Qin bowed his head. "The great noble houses have all wagered heavily on the royal fighting team. They were so certain of the royal team's victory that today they doubled their bets. If this continues, the arena could go bankrupt." A tense silence followed. Then Leader Shen's eyes narrowed. "So our only hope is the Shrek 7 Devils." A quiet chuckle came from the doorway. Master Gao appeared in the frame, arms crossed. "Your logic is flawless," he said, stepping into the room. "But if you intend to use the Shrek 7 Devils as your weapons, you must consider their opponent's might. You know the royal fighting team's strength better than anyone. I fear the Shrek 7 Devils won't prevail. I'm sorry, but I must decline." With that, Master Gao turned toward the door. As his hand rested on the handle, Director Ao's voice floated from the sofa. She was reclining with perfect composure, a polite smile on her lips. "Master Gao, we understand your academy's predicament as well. Please wait a moment." At Ao's words, the academy head released his grip on the door handle. He pivoted back toward Director Ao, eyes narrowing. "I've heard a bit about your college's finances. Word is your cash flow is stretched thin. Winning against the Royal Combat Team was impressive, but it probably left you wondering if you've done enough." Ao's lips curved in a sly smile. "Exactly why I've come with a proposal. Why not join forces with our Grand Seoul Combat Arena? If your students qualify for the arena's central championship and emerge victorious, we'll award a special bonus, on top of the usual prize money. And to be clear, this offer is exclusive to your academy." He paused, letting the implication settle. Shrek Academy could certainly use the funds. E-Master studied Ao for a long moment, then drifted back to his sofa and sank heavily into it. "Since you know our situation so well, please, tell me more about this bonus." Ao chuckled, tapping the polished wood of the table. "I thought you'd never ask, mister." He trailed off with a teasing glance, clearly savoring the drama before revealing the full terms of his enticing offer. "So the team leader really does exist," the master said in astonishment. Manager Ao chuckled. "Of course. And there's more. Every soul master who competes in the Grand Arena's main tournament earns 500 gold soul coins as standard prize money. But since we personally invited Shrek Academy, the Arena Council has unanimously agreed to grant your school an extra 10,000 gold soul coins as a special bonus. How does that sound? 10,000 gold soul coins?" The master's eyes went wide. Shrek Academy's coffers were nearly empty. Up to now, they'd survived only on stipends from the Spirit Hall and wagers placed by the Royal Fighting Team. An offer like this was more than generous. It was a lifeline. With that kind of money, he could break free from others' control and ensure his students had everything they needed. True, 10,000 coins would vanish quickly with so many young talents to train, but there was simply no reason to refuse. After all, Shrek Academy really was that poor. Master Li made up his mind without hesitation. "All right," he said. "I promise you our support, but in return, I need the full roster and details on every member of the Royal Fighting Team. Only then can the Shrek team go in with real confidence." "Consider it done." Manager Ao inclined his head and waved to an assistant who retrieved a folder of documents. He passed it across the table to Master Li. Here are all the profiles, statistics, and fighting records for the Royal Fighting Team. Take your time reviewing them. I'm headed to the central arena to make final preparations. If you need anything, just let me know. With a courteous nod, Manager Ao slipped out of the lounge. Outside, the clock still showed half a day before the team battles began in the main arena. Master Li carried the folder back to the Shrek team's private quarters and repeated Ao's parting words to Flanders. Then he laid the folder on the low table between them. Royal Fighting Team? Flanders raised an eyebrow and forced a smile. I've heard of them. Their reputation is impressive, to say the least. He paused, tapping a finger against his chin. This should be interesting. Are you certain our students can take them? Flanders asked, feigning doubt. The master's voice dropped to a low rumble. Even if we stand no chance on paper, we must find a way to win. The academy needs that prize money. Flanders shrugged nonchalantly. He'd already heard bits and pieces about Cheng Xiao from Qin Ming, and he had no intention of joining the team's spirit ritual, so he wasn't worried. All right, he said. What's the plan? If we come out on top this time, the master continued, our funding will increase dramatically. With those funds, I can finally roll out Stage 3 of the training curriculum for the students. Without it, we're going nowhere. We'll be stuck, living off the Spirit Hall's monthly subsidies forever. He swept aside the papers on the table, revealing a stack of dossiers, one for each member of the Royal Fighting Team. You really think the Spirit Hall hands out money out of kindness? It's a leash, plain and simple. If we stay under their thumb, our academy has no future. Master stared at the very first entry on the dossier and froze. Beside him, Flanders let out a dry chuckle. Well, would you look at that? Xiaogang is one of ours. Master said nothing in protest. He simply moved on, flipping through the remaining profiles. The next name captured his attention, Dugian, a rare surname. His martial soul was the green phosphorus snake. At a single glance, both Master and Flanders recognized what that meant, but neither dared to speak. After all, Dugian was no ordinary talent. He, as a top-tier powerhouse. They continued down the list. Yu Feng, Oslo, the Shi twins, Ye Lingling, each profile more impressive than the last. Finally, Master reached the last page. The name read, Cheng Xiao, Martial Soul, Shadow King, Level 37 Strong Attack Battle, Soul Master Soul Rings, 2 yellow, 1 purple. Master's lips tightened into a frown. If Cheng Xiao hadn't signed up, this team might have been manageable. But with him on board, the Shrek 7 Devils were in for a world of hurt. The pressure they'd face would be unimaginable. Chapter 89. Remember to eat, but don't get beaten. After poring over the dossier from the great soul-fighting arena, the coach exhaled deeply. The file was comprehensive in every respect, everything except the enemy's soul skills and their effects. He knew all too well the arena hadn't withheld the information by choice. It simply didn't have any details to share. Flanders leaned forward, brows knit in concern. Xiaogang, when you accepted their offer just now, didn't you ask whether Cheng Xiao would be taking part in the team spirit battle? You agreed so quickly. I'm worried Team Shrek won't stand a chance against a lineup that includes him. Xiaogang shook his head. I thought of that, but we had no other option. The college is practically broke, and their price was too good to turn down. In hindsight, I should have been more cautious. Don't be so hard on yourself, Flanders replied, placing a reassuring hand on Xiaogang's shoulder. Right now, our biggest concern is Cheng Xiao. If he really doesn't show up, what does that do for our odds in the team spirit battle? Master studied the proposal for a moment, then nodded slowly. With Cheng Xiao out of the picture, the skill gap won't be too large. Let's make it 8-2, 8 of us against 2 of them. Flender pushed his crystal-framed glasses up the bridge of his nose, rose, and addressed Master. You can sort out tactics for the others later. Leave Cheng Xiao to me. With that, Shrek might actually walk away with those 10,000 gold soul coins. Master frowned. What exactly are you planning? Flender merely shook his head, said nothing more, and strode out of the Shrek lounge. Master watched him go, puzzled but secretly relieved. Shrek's coffers were nearly empty, and any solution to their financial woes was welcome. An hour later, the entire Shrek team reconvened in the lounge. Tang-san stepped forward, curiosity bright in his eyes. Sir, who are we facing today? Master placed a sealed dossier on the table, then met Tang San's gaze with a solemn expression. "Here is today's opponent," he announced. He slid the folder toward them, and the team leaned in together to read what lay inside. Grandmaster deliberately left Cheng Xiao's name off the roster to protect the team's morale. After all, seasoned fighters like Tang San, Dai Mubai, and Ma Hongjun had all suffered defeats in the past. Reminding them that another powerhouse was entering the fray might erode their confidence and keep them from performing at full strength. At Shrek Academy, withdrawing from a tournament is tantamount to forfeiting crucial funding, and even worse, it would tarnish the Shrek team's hard-earned reputation. If their credibility takes a hit, they may never be invited back to the Grand Spirit Arena, and without that financial support, the academy would soon collapse. How else could Grandmaster continue to hone Tang San into a formidable soul master and prove the validity of his methods? Out of loyalty to both Shrek and himself, he chose to keep Cheng Xiao's participation under wraps, though in truth, it wasn't a permanent secret. Cheng Xiao might still be unable to compete, and the final decision rests with Flanders, who has already departed the academy. The students of Team Shrek clustered around the conference table, leaning in to study the dossier their master had just passed them. One by one, they read the profiles of the Imperial Fighting Team's spirit beasts. The blue electric Tyrannosaurus, the jade phosphorus snake. The more they learned, the heavier the silence in the lounge grew. Each of these spirits alone could overpower many opponents. Together, they posed a truly daunting challenge. If Team Shrek made a single mistake, defeat was all but certain. Sensing their morale slipping, their master cleared his throat and spoke with calm authority. "You've seen how powerful the Imperial team is, but they're not invincible. Look at Dai Mubai's white tiger spirit. He's a fierce combatant in his own right. Oscar's healing spirit grants him extraordinary endurance. Mahongjun's mutated spirit brings unpredictable strength, and Xiao Wu's transformation skill is a secret killing blow." He paused, making eye contact with each of them. Then there's Juju King, whose speed is virtually unmatched, and Ning Rongrong, whose amplification talismans can turn the tide of any battle. Between all of you, we have every tool we need to counter their strengths and exploit their gaps. He let the words sink in before delivering his final point. And remember, you are younger, hungrier, and more innovative than they are. Win or lose, this match is about growing stronger. Do your best, and that will be more than enough. With renewed determination, Team Shrek exchanged confident nods. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. But if you've lost the confidence to face the spirit now, you'd better sit this one out. Master's gaze swept over the Shrek team. He knew exactly how prideful they were. His constant encouragement had bolstered their belief that they were true geniuses, for confidence begets greatness. If Shrek backed down now, all his efforts would be for naught. Stirred by the master's words, Dai Mubai turned to the silent Tang San. "Xiao San, what do you think? You're the heart and soul of our team. This decision is yours." At that moment, a faint light flickered in Tang San's eyes. Tang San clasped his hands slowly, a fierce fighting spirit surging through his chest. He whispered, "Master is right. We are the Shrek 7, monsters among monsters." He lifted his voice so the others could hear. "The Imperial battle team thinks they can block our path? Then let's show them what Team Shrek can do." His master stepped forward, a proud smile on his face. Gently patting Tang San's shoulder, he said, "Excellent, my disciple. Remember, a team spirit match isn't over until the very last moment. Don't give up, and even if we lose, we must demonstrate the unstoppable spirit of Team Shrek." He added a quick reminder. "One more rule, no maiming your opponents, and Tang San here will be in charge of all tactics. Any objections?" Every member of Team Shrek shook their head. "No, Master," the Master nodded. Tang San felt a rush of excitement and honor. His teacher not only entrusted him with directing the battle tactics, but also gave him full freedom in organizing the team's strategy. Tang San's heart swelled with gratitude. "I am truly worthy to be his disciple," he thought, deeply moved by his master's faith in him. Tang San was the first to stretch out his right hand, his eyes bright with determination. One by one, Xiao Wu, Oscar, Dai Mubai, and the rest of the Shrek team followed suit until all their palms met in the center. In perfect unison, they cried out, "Shrek! Let's win. Meanwhile, in the Royal Du team's lounge, the mood was far more subdued. Monitors lining the walls displayed dossiers on every competing team. Yu Tianheng glanced up from the file before him, his brow darkening. "Isn't this the Soul Master from Team Shrek? The one who taunted Ling Ling recently?" he asked, voice low and edged with contempt. "Exactly, boss," Yufeng replied. "When we face the spirit beasts tonight, shall we make our presence known?" Yu Tianheng tapped a finger against the table, composed but unhurried. "Let's not jump the gun. We'll wait for Teacher Qin Ming to return and hear his strategy first." Yufeng nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "By the way, boss, didn't Teacher Qin Ming mention we'd be heading back to Tiando City after the Team Spirit competition?" Yu Tianheng shook his head, dismissive. "There's been no final word on that yet." "Yufeng, why so many questions?" Du Guyan snapped, leaning against Yu Tianheng's shoulder. "Why don't you wait for Teacher Qin to fill you in?" "We've been out here long enough," Yufeng protested. "Given Teacher Qin's style, he'll let us know when he's ready." Du Guyan rolled her eyes but fell silent. She missed her grandfather, her green-haired mentor, more than she cared to admit. Nearby, Osluo crossed his arms and observed coolly. "Frankly, none of the teams we've faced so far have been challenging. They're nowhere near as skilled as the spirit combat teams in Tiando City." Yu Tianheng's eyes sparked like a summer storm. "Don't get ahead of yourself," he warned. "We haven't even gone up against the Soul Master squads from the Five Elements Academy or Wuhun Palace. Had we, victory wouldn't have come so easily. Don't ever fool yourself into thinking you're strong just because your opponent is weak." Yu Tianheng warned, eyes narrowing. Osluo scratched the back of his head and offered a sheepish smile. "Right? Got it, boss." Yu Tianheng's gaze then drifted to the corner of the room, where Miles Xiao sat quietly. "Cheng Xiao," he asked, turning back, "did Mr. Qin Ming put you down for tonight's team spirit match?" Cheng Xiao shook her head. "No, he didn't say anything to me. Should I be joining?" Yu Tianheng nodded once. "All right, then. If Qin Ming hasn't asked, you're off the hook." As he moved on, Yufeng cleared his throat loudly. "Hey, Leng Leng, why have you been spending so much time with Cheng Xiao lately? You've almost abandoned the rest of us." Ye Lingling glanced up just long enough to roll her eyes. "Would you two stop bickering and mind your own business?" Yufeng opened his mouth to protest, but Du Guyan beat him to it, leaning forward with a knowing grin. "Come on, Yufeng. Don't think I don't know what's really on your mind." A spark of mischief passed among them as the room settled into an easy banter, the tension of their upcoming match pushed aside, at least for the moment. "Try stealing Lingling's ideas again, and I'll kill you," Du Guyan warned, her voice icy calm. "I've laced that third seat with poison. Sit there, and you'll be bound to Lingling for life." She swept a glance over to Osler, who was barely containing his laughter. "I didn't say a word about you," she added with a smirk. "So watch your back, too." Osler slapped a hand over his mouth in mock offense. "Come on, Sister Yanzi. How is that fair?" Yufeng, arms crossed, shot a glare at Du Guyan. "Seriously, you don't poison Lingling and Cheng Xiao when they sit together, but you do us?" Du Guyan's lips curved into a cold smile. "Unfair? If you can resist my poison as Cheng Xiao does, feel free to claim any seat you like, assuming you can handle it." Yufeng's cheeks colored, and she fell silent, casting a grudgingly envious look at Cheng Xiao. The lounge settled into an uneasy hush. Just then, the door swung open and Qin Ming stepped inside. "Teacher," the students chorused, leaping up and bowing in unison. Qin Ming offered a reassuring smile and waved them back to their seats. "Please, sit down." The room fell quiet as everyone returned to their places, awaiting his next words. Qin Ming looked at them with a puzzled expression. "Have you all reviewed the briefing Director Ao sent?" "We have, sir," Yu Tianheng replied. "Everyone's read it." "Good." Qin Ming turned back to Yu Tianheng. "Let's begin planning our tactics. Tianheng, I want you to take the lead on this." Then he glanced at Cheng Xiao. "Cheng Xiao, come with me for a moment. There's something I need to discuss with you." Chapter 90. When Rivals Meet, Jealousy Flares. Cheng Xiao stepped out of the lounge, his expression composed. A few paces away, Qin Ming stood waiting, his gaze fixed on him. "Teacher Qin, what brings you here?" Cheng Xiao asked, approaching with a polite smile. "Cheng Xiao," Qin Ming began, returning the smile with a hint of wryness. You've already seen today's briefing on the Royal Do team's opponents, haven't you? Cheng Xiao's brow rose. Of course. Qin Ming's grin widened. Then you probably guessed the rest. I'm actually a Shrek Academy alumnus. Not long ago, Principal Flanders came to me. He asked if I could persuade you to hold back your spirit energy in the upcoming match. He doesn't want Shrek Academy to suffer another crushing defeat. Hold back my spirit energy? Cheng Xiao repeated, stunned. He shook his head in disbelief. Forgive me if I sound surprised, but our Imperial fighting team has already earned a small fortune at the Grand Seoul Arena. Why would we pull our punches now? Qin Ming's face grew serious. Because they're counting on your reputation. If you unleash everything you've got, there's no doubt the Royal Do team will lose, and Shrek Academy loses face along with them. He paused, meeting Cheng Xiao's eyes. So I'm here to see if you're willing to play along. Cheng Xiao studied him for a moment, the cool afternoon light catching in his eyes. He gave a slow, mirthless laugh. Teacher Qin, I appreciate your loyalty to your alma mater, he said calmly. But once the match begins, I fight for the Imperial team. No compromises, no half measures. Qin Ming's jaw tightened. A flicker of disappointment crossed his features before he masked it with a neutral nod. Understood, he said softly. As Cheng Xiao turned to leave, Qin Ming hesitated for a heartbeat, then added, Good luck. Cheng Xiao paused at the door, glanced back, and gave a curt nod before stepping into the corridor, his resolve unwavering. The spectators at the Great Seoul Fighting Arena had grown restless. They'd already squandered a small fortune on betting losses, and in desperation, they'd reached out to Shrek Academy, hoping to exploit the school's reputation for fighters in order to recoup their investments and clear out early. But there was a flip side. If Shrek Academy's team emerged victorious, the arena's management had promised them a substantial reward, enough to plug any holes in the Academy's finances and stave off bankruptcy. Standing at the edge of the ring, Qin Ming addressed his teammates with measured calm. Given what we know of their current lineup, he began, we don't even need to deploy the entire Imperial fighting team. Our shadow soldiers alone can secure the win in this soul fight. He paused, letting the words sink in. As leader of the Imperial fighting team, he was not only their instructor, but also a fellow student of Shrek Academy. I won't force any of you into the arena, he continued, nor will I prevent you from choosing to compete. I've laid out the facts, though, because I want to hear your thoughts. In the end, the decision is yours. Having spoken, Qin Ming allowed himself a quiet sigh of relief. The choice and the responsibility rested squarely on his teammates' shoulders. Qin Ming took a steady breath. As the leader of the Imperial fighting team and a proud graduate of Shrek Academy, he knew how hard it was to single Cheng Xiao out for the spirit duel. Still, he had made his decision. Cheng Xiao, he said firmly, whether you choose to fight or not, I respect your choice. I won't force anyone into a match they don't agree to. That's not what a proper teacher does. Cheng Xiao's calm expression flickered with surprise, then relief. He glanced at Qin Ming and offered a small wry smile. Thank you, Teacher Qin. It really isn't about winning or losing for me, he admitted. But if I step aside, I'm worried the Shrek students will see it as an opportunity to settle old scores, especially against Ye Lingling. Qin Ming rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He'd heard enough about the Gru, dages between Lingling and certain Shrek classmates, to know Cheng Xiao was right. You make a good point, he conceded. Lingling could indeed become a target if we don't handle this carefully. He looked Cheng Xiao in the eye. All right, it'll be you who steps into the spirit ring. I trust you can represent the team honorably and protect Lingling from any ill will during the duel. Cheng Xiao nodded, determination shining in his eyes. I won't let anyone or anything harm her. With the decision made, the two prepared to face the challenge ahead. I also signed you up when we first registered, Qin Ming reminded him, but I haven't given you a chance to compete yet. Cheng Xiao saw the dilemma on Qin Ming's face and understood why he hesitated. On one side was his duty to the academy, on the other his responsibility to his own students. He couldn't please both perfectly. Teacher Qin, here's what we do, Cheng Xiao offered. I'll enter today's match, but I promise not to use my full strength. In exchange, Shrek Academy should remove one fighter from their lineup as well. That way neither side has an unfair advantage. Qinming considered the proposal and finally nodded. I understand what you mean. Cheng Xiao's lips quirked into a confident smile. If anyone from Shrek Academy moves against Lingling, don't say I didn't warn you. Qinming chuckled and shook his head. You're crafty, all right. It's a clever solution. I'll speak with Dean Flanders about it. But in the end, whether we win or lose is up to you. There were still small gaps in the plan, but they could be managed. Dean Flanders had requested that the Royal Do team go easy, and Qinming had agreed on those terms. Still, if any of his students were injured because of Flanders' plea, Qinming knew he'd never forgive himself. After all, Ye Lingling is little more than an auxiliary soul master. She has almost no real fighting power. If Shrek's team can sweep aside the other 5 members of the Royal Do team and then turn on Ye Lingling, then so be it. They'll only have themselves to blame. The central arena of the Soto Grand Arena is surprisingly modest in size. Its floor is only marginally larger than the adjacent sub-arenas, and there are no open-air stands encircling it. Instead, sealed viewing boxes line the outer walls, each fronted by thick crystal glass. Spectators peer in from behind, but can glimpse the action only from a single angle. Behind every pane, VIP guests are packed in rows, hidden from view. No one here dares reveal their identity, nor do they shout or cheer like ordinary fans. They've come for one thing only, the private thrill of watching at their own exclusive level of prestige. From ultra-luxury suites to standard VIP rooms, every compartment has been booked solid, no exceptions. The cavernous soul-fighting arena pulsed with a deep, golden light that suddenly intensified, converging on the center stage. There, a 2-meter-wide circular platform rose smoothly from the floor, and atop it stood a young woman, no more than 18 or 19 years old. Her skin was pale as ivory, her long brown hair curled in soft waves, and she wore a graceful white dress that swept the platform beneath her feet. In one hand, she held a conical loudspeaker. On her lips, a practiced, welcoming smile. Good evening, distinguished guests, and welcome to tonight's Team Soul Combat, she announced, her voice ringing clearly through the arena. I'm your host, Douluo, and it's my honor to guide you through this spectacular contest. Sit back and prepare to be amazed. Douluo swept her free arm toward the towering crystal monitors that framed the arena walls, each one shimmering with the eager faces of spectators. Let me introduce our competitors, she continued. First up, representing the Imperial Fighting Team, their captain, Yu Tianheng. Cheers and applause erupted as his profile and name blazed across the crystals. And facing him, Douluo went on, is the Shrek 7 Monsters team, led by the formidable Dai Mubai. Again, the crowd roared in approval. With confident poise, she went down the roster, naming every fighter on both sides until every name had drawn its own burst of applause. When she finished, the arena crackled with anticipation. Tonight's battle was about to begin. Her motive was straightforward, to build excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, the spirit battle is about to begin. Will the members of both teams please take the stage? As soon as the words left her lips, a shaft of pure white light burst from host Douluo's body. In an instant, a pair of alabaster wings sprouted from her back, and 3 golden soul rings appeared in mid-air around her. When those rings began to glow, Douluo beat her new wings and lifted gracefully into the air. Douluo's soaring silhouette marked her as a true soul master. Her martial spirit, an elegant white dove, granted her the power of flight through her 3rd soul skill. From her vantage point above the arena, she commanded the crowd's attention like a figure of legend. At her signal, the twin doors of the soul-fighting platform slid open soundlessly. On the left, the Imperial fighter team marched out in perfect formation. Leading the line was Yu Tianheng, his gaze calm but resolute. Close behind him strode Du Guyan, flanked by the Shi family twins, their black tortoise martial spirits coiled and ready. Bringing up the rear was Yu Feng, whose wind chime bird spirit wove soft melodies through the air. Their teammate, the fearsome ghost leopard Oslo, had been benched this round, sacrificed for a strategic substitution. As the Imperial fighters took their places center stage, the doors on the right parted to reveal the Shrek team. Each warrior stepped forward with quiet confidence, ready to clash with their rivals. High above them all, Douluo hovered, her wings outstretched like a herald's banner, and the arena trembled with anticipation for the battle to come. Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling, her face concealed behind a black veil, stood together at the far end of the arena. Opposite them, the Shrek 7 Monsters team lined up in perfect formation, each member wearing the same black power suit and green mask. Though their heights varied, their identical armor and unified stance made them look like a single, disciplined force. No sooner had both sides taken the stage than a faint, ethereal smoke began to swirl around them, the invisible residue of the arena's spirit energy barriers. From the Shrek camp, Daimubai's amber eyes narrowed as he spotted the two adversaries. He cracked his knuckles and murmured, "They're both here." Ma Hongjun, tugging at his uniform in anticipation, shot a look at Tang San. "Third brother, you know how badly our boss got beaten last time. Today, we're going to make Cheng Xiao and her partner pay." Tang San placed a steadying hand on both men's shoulders. "Hold on. Remember what Master said. This match is 6 against 5. Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling won't be allowed to use any spirit skills." He met Daimubai's gaze. "Our plan is simple. We take out their teammates first, then combine our forces to deal with Cheng Xiao and that woman together." Daimubai allowed a feral grin to cross his face. "Good, let's show them why Shrek's monsters never back down." With that, the smoke thickened briefly and the arena lights flared, signaling the start of the battle. The two sides, poised for conflict, readied themselves for the clash to come. "I don't believe he can take on all 7 of us by himself." "Understood, third brother." Ma Hongjun nodded fiercely, a savage light in his eyes. He still winced at the memory of Cheng Xiao crushing his leg to splinters. He planned to make Cheng Xiao endure that pain in return. As for Ye Lingling standing beside him, well, she'd brought this on herself. A few paces behind them, Ning Rongrong listened in disbelief. They were openly hunting for a fight. After all, they'd gone into town to bully girls and richly deserved the beating they'd gotten. Yet now they had the gall to blame the victims for refusing to back down. Across the spirit fighting arena, low growls like "E-dragons and tigers" rippled through the air. Even before the opening bell, both sides were already calculating how to claim victory. "Xiaowu, you're really not going to join in?" Ning Rongrong leaned toward her friend, noting that Xiaowu still hadn't released her martial spirit. Xiaowu waved her hand quickly. "Nope, I'm sticking with you and Oscar for now." Gone was the reckless, lawless Xiaowu. In her place stood a calm, determined ally. Ever since Douluo discovered that someone was plotting to steal her soul ring and soul bone, she'd stayed relentlessly vigilant, striking when necessary and vanishing when prudent. Now, poised above the arena, her snow-white wings gently fluttering, she addressed both teams in a soft, melodious voice. "Competitors, please release your martial spirits." At her command, Daimubai cast a frosty glance toward Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling of the Imperial Fighting Team, then shifted his focus onto their captain, Yu Tianheng. He planted his feet firmly, brought his hands together at his chest, and shouted, "Captain Yu, unleash your martial soul." In an instant, 3 luminous rings of light spiraled upward from Daimubai's feet, each one marking one of his soul rings. Behind him, every member of Team Shrek mirrored the gesture, summoning their martial spirits and soul rings in a shimmering display. The soul combat stage erupted into a breathtaking panorama of color and power as dozens of martial spirits manifested overhead, a vivid testament to the might of these soul masters. After every contestant released their martial spirit, the host, Douluo, who hovered effortlessly in midair, announced in a clear, lilting voice, "Let the soul battle begin." Those 4 simple words, spoken from her cherry-red lips, instantly charged the arena with a tense, solemn energy. In the enclosed VIP box overlooking the soul-fighting stage, Qin Ming of the Imperial Combat Team sat stiffly, flanked by Master and Flanders from Shrek Academy, each of them holding their breath in anticipation. Chapter 91, The Failed Soul Fusion Technique. Daimubai charged forward, his first soul ring flaring to life. A brilliant white glow enveloped him as he hurtled toward the royal fighting team. In response, the twin Shi brothers stepped out side by side, their own first soul rings ignited, bathing them in a calm, steady aura. They hefted their green tortoise shields and braced for impact. "Tang-san!" Daimubai growled under his breath. At that moment, Tang-san's voice cut through the din. "Rongrong, speed up!" At the command, Ning Rongrong's second soul ring blazed, she rose into the air, pirouetting in place as waves of radiant color emanated from her. In her right hand floated a miniature pagoda, its 7 tiers gleaming with shifting hues. 7 treasures glazed pagoda. Second ring, speed, she declared. A stream of prismatic light shot forth, striking Daimubai squarely. The enchanted energy surged through him. He rooted his left foot on the ground with a resounding thud, then exploded upward. In one fluid motion, Daimubai vaulted clean over the Shi brothers' heads and descended upon the royal fighting team's rear ranks, turning their formation upside down before they even knew what hit them. Yu Tianheng refused to let Daimubai slip away unscathed. As his first soul ring flared with fierce light, he condensed his signature attack, the Thunder Dragon Claw, channeling the full might of his Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex martial soul. Crackling with violet thunder, the massive claw shot straight at Daimubai's chest. Suspended in midair, Daimubai was at a severe disadvantage. With no solid footing, any attempt to block the blow would leave him reeling under its full force, and Yu Tianheng could then press the attack until his teammates arrived to finish him off. Victory seemed all but guaranteed. Then, in a fraction of a second, Daimubai twisted his body and slipped clear of the Thunder Dragon Claw's downward arc. Yu Tianheng blinked in astonishment, thrown off by the sudden escape. That's when he noticed Tang San's blue-silver grass coiling tightly around Daimubai's waist, yanking him to safety. Tang San, hidden until now, had intervened at the last possible moment and saved his comrade from certain doom. Yu Tianheng itched to press the attack, but as captain he knew all too well that chasing deep into enemy lines would leave his own team exposed to counter-control. To secure the victory in spirit, he reluctantly broke off the pursuit, fell back to the arena floor, and reformed his squad's defenses. Viewing stand. Master Zhang, flanked by Flanders, Zhao Wuji, and the others, had watched the struggle in tense silence. At first, he'd been petrified. Of all the Royal Spirit Team's members, only Cheng Xiao and his own nephew, Yu Tianheng, gave him real cause for worry. Now, Cheng Xiao still hadn't intervened, and Yu Tianheng was ensnared by Tang San's blue-silver grass. Surely nothing could stop Shrek's triumph. Flanders, Master Zhang crowed, slapping his friend on the shoulder. See? As long as Cheng Xiao stands down, our Shrek team is guaranteed to win tonight. Flanders exchanged a wry look with Zhao Wuji before turning back to the jubilant master. Isn't that a bit premature, Xiaogang? Cheng Xiao just hasn't made his move yet. That doesn't mean he won't. At Flanders' words, Zhao Wuji and the others exchanged puzzled glances, unsure what new twist might still lie ahead. Master Zhao let the kettle whistle softly before pouring 2 cups of steaming tea. He settled back in his chair, a confident gleam in his eyes. Flanders, he said, voice low but clear, I don't know what you've arranged behind the scenes, but I've noticed. Neither Cheng Xiao nor his assistants once summoned their martial spirits on the court. What do you make of that? Flanders, a tall, composed man in a dark robe, sipped his tea slowly. It's simple, he replied. They're overconfident. They see this spirit tournament as little more than a spectacle, not a real battle. As the old proverb goes, arrogant soldiers lose their edge. The Royal fighting team is looking down on Shrek Academy, practically inviting defeat. I'm certain they'll fall. From the elevated viewing pavilion at Shrek Academy, the entire spirit stage lay spread out below like a chessboard. Spectators leaned forward, eyes fixed on the unfolding matches. Among them, only Cheng Xiao's closest teammates knew the truth. Ye Lingling, their star battler, had not released her martial spirit. Now, Ye Lingling stood beside Cheng Xiao at the rail, arms crossed, her cold gaze raking over the royal team's fighters. The evening sun struck her silver hair, lending her an almost otherworldly aura. Despite the deafening cheers from the crowd, a chill settled around her, an unspoken promise that when she finally took the stage, she'd show her opponents the cost of underestimating her. Cheng Xiao glanced at her, the corner of his mouth quirked in a knowing smile. He already understood her strategy, confidence, patience, and timing. And as Master Zhao and Flanders had predicted, the royal team's early arrogance would soon prove their downfall. Flanders exhaled onto the frosty air, bewildered by his master's hasty judgment. The very idea that someone could be so proud as to hold back their martial spirit left him at a loss for words. How, he wondered, could his master possibly assess the situation that way? Suppressing a sigh, he turned his gaze back to the soul-fighting stage. On the platform, Xiao Wu stood quietly beside Ning Rongrong, neither of them making a move. Tang San, calm and collected, studied the members of the royal fighting team. Then, without a word, he tapped the ghost shadow petal beneath his foot and unleashed his first soul skill. Blue-silver grass erupted from the ground in an endless torrent, instantly winding itself around the opponents. In an instant, save for Yufeng, who hovered in midair, and Ye Lingling and Cheng Xiao, who managed to keep their distance behind him, the entire royal fighting team was ensnared by the animated vines. "Fatty, fire breath," Tang San called out, seizing the advantage. Ma Hongjun grinned at the chance to shine. 2 rings of golden light flared around him as he channeled his surging purple flame, ready to incinerate anything Tang San's grass spirit left bound. A torrent of purple-red flame roared from Ma Hongjun's mouth, hurtling straight toward the Huangdo soldiers ensnared by the coils of blue-silver grass. Every element of this ambush had played out exactly as Tang San had predicted. He'd been waiting for precisely this moment. Under the onslaught of the scorching phoenix flames, the Shi brothers' 3rd soul rings flared to life, instantly shattering the grass's restraints. Raising their basalt shields overhead, they charged headlong into the blaze to buy precious seconds. The instant their shields blocked the fire, Tang San's eyes glowed a fierce crimson. He channeled soul power through every fiber of his being, and with a sudden rip, the 8-spider lance burst through his clothes and lunged outward behind him. The moment the lance appeared, a chill aura swept from Tang San, transforming his entire silhouette into that of a looming, 8-legged spider. Alarmed, Du Guyan cried out, "An external soul bone, watch yourselves." Cheng Xiao's earlier warning echoed in everyone's minds. Tang San's 8-spider lance was no ordinary weapon, but a deadly soul bone forged in the crucible of their last duel. "Come down!" Tang San barked. His 3rd soul ring flared to life, and he unleashed a violet orb that shot straight at Yufeng. Empowered by the 8-spider soul bone, Tang San deployed his soul ability in the blink of an eye. Even with Du Guyan's warning, Yufeng had no time to react. The orb struck him, instantly expanding into a massive web that ensnared him. Before he could struggle free, he plummeted from the sky, defeated. Yu Tianheng's eyes widened in surprise. Disposing of Yufeng so swiftly had not been part of his plan. Tang San was far more formidable than he'd anticipated. "Mubai, Juqing, engage them now!" Tang San called out, seizing the Ma, Oment. At his command, Dai Mubai and Zhu King exchanged determined glances and surged forward as one. Martial Soul Fusion Skill, Nether White Tiger. Realizing he couldn't allow the fusion to succeed, Yu Tianheng lunged forward, his body crackling with energy. In that instant, his 3rd soul ring ignited, bathing him in a fierce, menacing glow as he charged to interrupt their convergence. Yu Tianheng's body crackled with raw energy as he unleashed the 1,000-year soul skill, Thunder Fury. In an instant, brilliant sapphire lightning arced around him, detonating the blue-silver vines that had coiled his form, charcoal dust scattering in the wake of that fierce burst. Facing down the fused martial soul technique of Dai Mubai and Zhu King, Yu Tianheng's face darkened. He'd never expected his opponents to hold such a deadly trump card. With no time to waste, he activated both his 1st and 2nd soul skills, summoning the fearsome Thunder Dragon Claw and a roaring storm of electricity to strike the Nether White Tiger. Onlookers braced themselves, certain the white beast would shatter under the assault, only to witness the impossible. The Nether White Tiger absorbed the Thunder Dragon Claw's full force, then unleashed its own fusion technique in a single, devastating counterattack. The combined might of Dai Mubai and Zhu King was blasted from the arena, skidding to a thunderous halt on the soul-fighting stage below. Silence fell over the crowd. Yu Tianheng stood frozen, staring in disbelief at the 2 fallen warriors. How, and when, had he grown so powerful? He couldn't tear his eyes away from the wreckage of their fusion, mind racing with the realization that his strength had far surpassed even his own expectations. Looking down at Dai Mubai and Zhu King, both sprawled on the arena floor, grievously wounded, Tang San's face went ashen with shock. His strategy had hinged on that final strike. It was supposed to be enough to take Yu Tianheng out of the fight. He had never expected an accident to befall Dai Mubai and Zhu King at precisely this moment. As the name implies, the martial soul fusion technique requires two soul masters who think as one. Dai Mubai and Zhu Juqing had only succeeded moments ago because their martial souls were extraordinarily compatible. But sustaining that fusion demanded flawless concentration and perfect timing, luxuries they could no longer afford under their current injuries. With their fusion broken, the tide of battle tipped decisively in favor of the royal fighting team. Every advantage Shrek Academy had worked so hard to claim was slipping through their fingers. Defeat no longer seemed a distant possibility. It was all but certain. If they lost this match, Shrek Academy's team wouldn't just miss out on glory, they would face the very real threat of disbandment. For the first time since arriving here, Tang San had found a genuine home among his teammates. He could not and would not stand by and watch it be torn apart. A fierce resolve ignited in Tang San's chest. Clenching his fists, he drew a steadying breath and glanced at his friends. Even battered and bruised, Dai Mubai and Zhu Juqing had risked everything for this team. Now it was up to him to carry the fight forward. There might be no time for another fusion, no second chance at the tactic that had nearly secured victory, but Tang San refused to let circumstances decide his fate. With a determined nod, he stepped back into the fray. He would not allow defeat to define Shrek Academy, no matter the cost. Rongrong, boost my aura. Fatty, be ready, Tang San called out, his eyes growing cold. Behind him, 8 spider lances quivered like restless predators waiting for their master's signal. On the royal fighting team's side, Yu Tianheng sensed Tang San's sudden change and spun around. I'll handle him, cover the others, and don't worry about the 2 soul fusion fighters. The backlash will knock them out on its own. With that, Yu Tianheng stamped his foot. Blue arcs of lightning crackled over his body as he ged forward, Thunder Dragon Claw poised to strike. But just as he closed the distance, Tang San tilted his head back and let a mocking smile spread across his face. Chapter 92, Alternative Methods of Using Holy Energy and Shadow Power. Fatty, breathe fire. Tang San's voice cut through the air as he planted his foot on the ghost shadow beneath him and launched himself at Yu Tianheng. Above them, Ma Hongjun hovered, wings of flame unfurling. With a deafening roar, he unleashed a torrent of phoenix fire so scorching that it instantly forged a barrier between Tang San and his target, halting Yu Tianheng's counterstrike in its tracks. On the ground, the Shi brothers raised their shields, stepping forward to intercept Tang San's assault, but he was already too fast. In the blink of an eye, a black blur swept past them, and Tang San's 8 spider lance drove through both of their chests. Watch out! It's poisonous! Dugu Yan cried, her sharp eyes widening in alarm. She immediately unleashed her 3rd soul skill, the green phosphorus purple poison, aiming it like a living fog at Tang San's approaching form. Anticipating this move, Tang San tossed the small cask of Realgar wine he'd stashed at his hip into the spreading purple-green haze. The moment the potent poison cloud met the wine's fiery kick, Ma Hongjun's phoenix flame ignited it, producing a brilliant conflagration that obliterated the toxin in an instant. But Tang San wasn't finished. As Du Guyan reeled from the explosion, he melded with his ghost shadow, becoming nearly invisible. In that suspended heartbeat, the 8 spider lance reappeared, its velocity beyond the Shi brothers or Du Guyan's ability to defend. In one seamless sweep, the lance found its mark again, leaving no time for reaction. Before the dust settled, Tang San had already withdrawn, the ghostly echo of his presence fading into the night. Around him, scorched earth and vanishing poisons bore witness to a single truth. By fusing holy energy with shadow power, he had once more turned the tide of battle in his favor. Before long, only Yu Tianheng, Cheng Xiao, and Ye Lingling, drained from overusing their soul power, remained fighting for the royal team. Yu Tianheng hurried over to Lingling. Lingling, treat Yanzi and the others right away. This poison is nasty. We can't afford to leave them like this. Ye Lingling gave a small nod. Until now, she'd held back her martial soul because her only talent was healing. Beyond that, she was just an ordinary spirit user. If she began treating the wounded, the balance of the duel would tip entirely in their favor. From the sidelines, Tang San's eyes flickered with resolve. He remembered their master's explicit prohibition against using hidden weapons in the arena, but he also remembered why they were here, for Shrek. Without another moment's hesitation, Tang San called upon the power of his black jade hand. A chill gleamed along his 10 slender fingers, and dozens of razor-sharp darts sprang into being. They whistled through the air from every direction, aiming straight for Yilingling as she knelt by her comrades. Determined to secure victory for Shrek, Tang San was ready to defy orders and eliminate the only barrier to their success. Tang San's form suddenly glowed as his second soul skill activated, the rings on his spirit energy flaring to life. In an instant, Yu Tianheng, who'd been preoccupied with his teammates, found himself ensnared by layers of swift-growing blue-silver grass. Yu Tianheng's eyes widened in disbelief. He'd never expected Tang San to have such a trick. As he struggled to break free, a chill gleam split the air. "Lingling, watch out!" he cried, but his warning came too late. "You tormented me before," Tang San said, a fierce grin on his face. "Now I'm getting my revenge." Second soul skill, Lustful Phoenix, intoned Ma Hongjun, his voice echoing like a chant. First soul skill, Phoenix Fireline, Tang San shouted, stoking the attack. Thanks to Ma Hongjun's synergy, the intensity of his Phoenix fire surged by 30%. A towering column of purple flames, thick and roiling like molten amethyst, erupted toward Yilingling and Yu Tianheng, determined to engulf them completely. Tang San wove hay, his blue-silver grass, into the inferno as kindling, ensuring there would be no escape. Ning Rongrong watched in stunned silence. Their opponents now had only one capable soul master left on the field. All that stood between victory and defeat was keeping that lone support spirit master pinned down, denying her any chance to heal their allies. Two assailants struck at once, even unleashing concealed weapons, clearly intent on killing Yilingling. As a support-type soul master with no real combat talent, Ning Rongrong couldn't stand by and watch. She bit her lip, channeled her soul power, and bathed Yilingling in a vibrant, accelerating aura. The sudden boost in speed left Yilingling momentarily breathless, but she managed a grateful glance at Ning Rongrong before falling back behind Cheng Xiao. In the next instant, Cheng Xiao's hand crystallized into a long sword wreathed in golden light and swirling black mist. The blade gleamed like burnished gold, yet its hilt radiated a chilling aura of death. The moment the sword appeared, an invisible shockwave rippled outward, sweeping aside the dozens of razor-sharp projectiles hurtling toward Yilingling. From the Shrek Academy viewing gallery, the masters, who had been basking in the glow of imminent victory, stood frozen, stunned by Cheng Xiao's sudden, decisive intervention. He spun to glare at Flanders, who stood beside him with a troubled frown. "You told me Cheng Xiao wouldn't join this battle," he snapped. Flanders let out a heavy sigh. "I did, but I also warned you not to target the Royal Fighting Team's auxiliary spirit masters." Those words hit the master like a bolt of lightning. His eyes went wide, then darkened. "No, there's still a chance," he cried, scrambling to his feet. Ignoring any further explanation, he bellowed up to Tang San on the arena floor. "Xiao San, you can't lose." On the arena platform, Cheng Xiao surveyed the conflagration of phoenix flames roaring toward him. He raised his chin, snapped his right fingers, and the most formidable of his shadow soldiers, a towering three-eyed demon ape, stepped forward to shield him. Ma Hongjun unleashed everything he had, but even his strongest blows failed to pierce the creature's thick hide. Calm and composed, Cheng Xiao drew in a deep breath, channeling both sacred energy and shadow power into the blade of his longsword. In the next instant, Cheng Xiao's eyes locked onto the Shrek team. A faint smile played at his lips as he thrust his longsword forward. In that moment, the blade, infused with sacred energy and shadow essence, blazed into a streak of pure light, racing like a bolt of lightning straight at Ma Hongjun and Tang San. Ma Hongjun halted mid-roar as he spat fire, caught the flash of steel. He began to pivot, but at that precise second, the three-eyed demon ape unleashed a deafening roar. As a powerful spiritual soul beast, its cry sent shockwaves through the minds of the Shrek fighters, disrupting their spirit senses. Seizing the opening, Cheng Xiao lifted his free hand. Instantly, swirling clouds of inky black smoke erupted from the arena floor, climbing the walls until the entire battleground lay shrouded in an opaque barrier, an invisible prison sealing off any escape. "It's over," Cheng Xiao whispered, his voice calm but filled with finality. High above the black shroud, the strange longsword that had fled into the sky paused. It expanded rapidly, growing into a colossal greatsword of crackling energy. Then, without warning, it plunged back down. The moment the titan blade struck the barrier, it detonated in a cataclysmic explosion that shattered the silence and thundered across the heavens. Boom! The blast wave rippled outward, heralding the climactic end of Cheng Xiao's assault. In the blink of an eye, brilliant streams of sacred light collided with the inky currents of shadow power, and a cataclysmic blast ripped through the arena. Dense, spiderweb cracks snaked outward from the epicenter, as Cheng Xiao's colossal sword, an explosive fusion of sacred energy and shadow, finally detonated. Though these two forces typically repel one another, Cheng Xiao had discovered how to bind them long enough to trigger their combined might. He'd wagered that melding such opposites would produce an unprecedented eruption, and the raw power of the blast proved him right. By all appearances, only Cheng Xiao's calculated use of extra shadow power to shroud and dampen the explosion spared him from total annihilation. Without that dark veil to absorb the worst of the shockwave, no one would have walked away from the scarred battleground today. Yet even as the dust settled, Cheng Xiao's triumph was hollow. The boy lay dead in the wreckage, sacrificed to fuel this devastating strike. And Cheng Xiao knew, all too well, the fury that awaited him. A grieving father, who had intended to use his own son as a weapon in a vendetta, would not forgive such a betrayal. Ahead of him loomed the thunderous wrath of a father scorned, an enemy no shadow could conceal him from. Chapter 93. Victory belongs to the royal fighting team. Shrek has lost. High in the viewing gallery, Flanders closed his eyes. He couldn't bear to look at the ruined forms of the children below, or perhaps he was simply too afraid to face the aftermath of that devastating blast. His chest still ached from the force of it. If Cheng Xiao could wield this technique at full strength, even he wouldn't stand a chance. A thunderous boom reverberated across the arena. Though the black smoke barrier containment had spared the audience from direct harm, the shockwave rattled every bone in their bodies. Spectators instinctively pressed palms to ears, bracing themselves against the concussive roar. Minutes passed before the tremors finally subsided. One by one, hands fell away, and anxious gazes returned to the battlefield. In the center of the smoking, cratered ring stood Cheng Xiao, alone. Slowly, he lowered the hand that had been wreathed in ebony mist, drawing a steadying breath to calm his racing heart. Silence settled over the stands as everyone realized what had happened. The royal fighting team's signature move had indeed secured their victory. Victory belonged to the royals, and no one, it seemed, could stand in their way. Cheng Xiao felt his shadow power ebbing away faster than he'd expected. He lifted his gaze toward the lingering smoke, then waved his hand. Suddenly, a sharp blast of wind tore through the haze, whisking dust and debris aside in an instant. As the air cleared, every onlooker sprang back in shock. Before them yawned a vast crater, 3 or 4 meters deep and broad enough to swallow several men. Hairline fissures radiated from its rim, spidering out across the ground. At the bottom of the pit lay 2 motionless figures, their chests rising and falling in faint, ragged breaths. Moments ago, when Cheng Xiao's energy giant sword had erupted in a blinding explosion, Tang San had woven his blue-silver grass barrier to shield the group. Though the strike was devastating, Cheng Xiao never intended to kill. He had simply driven his sword blade into the earth and then detonated the unstable fusion of their 2 energies, leaving only this gaping wound in the battlefield and 2 battered survivors at its base. Even though Cheng Xiao hadn't intended to kill anyone, the shockwave unleashed by her energy giant sword still wrought havoc on the Shrek 7 devils. Only Tang San and Ma Hongjun, standing closest to the blade, took the brunt of it. Both slipped into comas, their uniforms shredded by the blast. They weren't dead, but their injuries would confine them to bed for months. At that moment, only Ning Rongrong, Oscar, and Xiao Wu remained conscious. The other 4 lay scattered across the ground, faces ashen and breaths so shallow they seemed on the verge of snuffing out. Oscar's eyes darted to the deep pit where Tang San and Ma Hongjun lay motionless. Panic flared in his gaze, and he staggered backward, unable to look any longer. Ning Rongrong, Oscar. Xiao Wu's voice shook as she knelt beside them. Oscar stared at her blankly, his body trembling. Ningrongrong drew a shaky breath and said, voice quivering, "We have no choice but to admit defeat." Her words landed like a hammer blow. Oscar's knees buckled as he raised his head with great effort, glancing toward the Shrek viewing stand. Their mentors and fellow disciples watched in stunned silence, the weight of the moment pressing down on them all. In that charged hush, it was clear. The Shrek Seven Devils had been decisively beaten. The look on Tang San's face was more one of chagrin than tears. He knew by now that if the battle continued, win or lose, he might not walk away from this arena alive. "Oscar, what are you waiting for? Tend to Xiao San at once," the Shrek Seven Devils coach bellowed from the stands. "Once Cheng Xiao is neutralized, this victory still belongs to us." After witnessing Cheng Xiao unleash such a devastating soul skill, the coach was certain the girl's own soul power had been drained to the brink. Tang San was unconscious, but the coach was equally convinced that a few of Oscar's spirit sausages would be enough to revive him and turn the tide back in Shrek's favor. What the coach didn't see, however, was the look on Flanders's face. His features had been shifting through disbelief, resentment, and something like dread. He'd never imagined his friend could be so unrelenting. But in that instant, it dawned on him. Whether the fight continued or stalled, whether Tang San woke up or not, the outcome of this soul beast contest had already been decided. If this fight went on any longer, Tang San wouldn't walk out of the Tiando Great Fighting Spirit Arena alive. As headmaster of Shrek Academy, Flanders refused to let his students be sacrificed on the altar of someone's ego. He wouldn't stand by while a rival instructor risked ruining these children in a vain attempt to prove his theory. With that decision made, Flanders summoned his spirit power, hurriedly placed the mysterious box back in the stands, and raced down to the arena floor. Oscar, watching anxiously, let out a relieved breath the moment Flanders arrived. Fearing the four fallen fighters might bleed out, he immediately prepared 4 large spirit nutrient rolls, what everyone jokingly called spirit sausages, and with Ningrongrong and Xiao Wu administered them to each unconscious student. High in the viewing gallery, the opposing master's face turned crimson. His chest heaved with each ragged breath as he stared at the scene below. In that instant, he saw his own theory unravel. Without the forbidden third-stage training, Tang San would never become the powerhouse he'd predicted, and the master's reputation would lie in ruins. "I'm Flanders, leader of Shrek Academy. We concede defeat," Flanders called out to host Dudu, hovering in midair. With that, he scooped Tang San and Ma Hongjun from the pit, explained the situation to Oscar, and then descended from the arena, cradling Ma Hongjun in one arm and Tang San in the other. Oscar followed closely behind, bearing Dai Mubai on his back. Xiao Wu carried Zhu King, and Ning Rongrong trailed them, quietly applying her amplified soul power to lighten their burden. None who watched expected the famed Shrek team to concede so abruptly. Dudu hovered, momentarily stunned. She cast a quick glance at the crestfallen Shrek members, then shifted her gaze to the royal fighting team, each of whom had just been restored to full strength by Ye Lingling's healing arts. A small, incredulous sigh escaped her. Could this really have been a Soul Master-level team battle? With soul techniques of that caliber, even a Soul Emperor would have come away wounded. At last, Dudu straightened, cleared her throat, and announced with a smile, "By the judges' decision, the victors of this team-fighting soul contest are the Royal Fighting Team. Let's congratulate them on winning this match," the announcer boomed. The VIP box erupted in thunderous applause. Though a few voices murmured doubts, no one had expected a teenage Soul Master to wield such a devastating skill that could incapacitate all 7 members of Team Shrek in a single blow. Most spectators sat in stunned silence. From the crackling aftershocks of energy, it was clear that had Cheng Xiao not summoned her shadow barrier at the last moment, the entire arena would have been wiped out by the explosion. As the dust settled and Team Shrek's battered figures disappeared from view, the royal fighters strode confidently down the steps of the Soul Arena and made their way toward the Soul Master Lounge, their victory secure. Chapter 94. Home? I have no home anymore. When the soul fight ended, the royal fighting team hurried back to the lounge. No sooner had they all collapsed onto the sofas than Qin Ming stood up again, signaling everyone to follow him out of the arena. He led his team down a quiet corridor to a secluded corner where several middle-aged men were waiting. Behind them stood the defeated members of Team Shrek. At the sight of Qinming's approach, Flanders, one of the men, stepped forward with relief. "Finally," he said, voice tight with impatience. Then his gaze swept over Cheng Xiao, and his expression darkened. "Tell me the truth, boy. Was this all a scheme to get back at my students?" Cheng Xiao met his glare coolly, neither bowing his head nor raising his chin in defiance. "This wasn't revenge," he replied evenly. "At most, it was a warning." He paused. "Before the fight, Qinming and I agreed that no one would harm Ye Lingling. In return, the other 5 would surrender once their souls were nullified. But they broke that understanding." Flanders let out a bitter chuckle, shaking his head as if disappointed by his own expectations. "Right," he muttered. "Forget it." Behind them, the Shrek team members shifted uncomfortably, their eyes on Cheng Xiao. Though their bodies had lost the fight, the tension in the air reminded everyone that promises in the soul arena could be as fragile as the souls they battled with. Dean Flanders gave a dismissive shrug. "They're just too weak in skill. It's no surprise they lost. I'll admit, I didn't manage them well." Then, as if on a whim, he asked, "Still, would any of you like to consider joining Shrek Academy?" Cheng Xiao offered a polite bow. "No, thank you for your kindness, Dean Flanders." Qinming winced inwardly. His dean's old habit of poaching promising talent had not changed one bit, and there was nothing he could say. Flanders was his superior. Instead, he turned to the perplexed Huangdo students who had gathered at the edge of the courtyard. "Oh, I nearly forgot to introduce everyone. Dean Flanders was once my teacher, which makes these young men and women my juniors." He then looked back to Ye Lingling. "Lingling, give our juniors some treatment." Ye Lingling glanced at Cheng Xiao for confirmation. When Cheng Xiao offered a gentle nod, she closed her eyes and summoned her martial spirit. From her palm sprang the 9-heart begonia, a soft, glowing blossom that blossomed into a flurry of pink petals. They drifted down over the injured members of Shrek Academy and gently merged with their bodies, knitting flesh and bone with a warm, restorative energy. After a while, under the 9-heart begonia's extraordinary healing power, the wounded members of Shrek lay almost completely restored. Ning Rongrong, watching the glowing petals infuse their bodies with energy, felt genuine awe at the begonia's miraculous effect. First to stir were Dai Mubai and Juju King. Their injuries, bruised ribs from the martial soul fusion backlash and burns from the explosive energy, were swiftly mended. As Dai Mubai opened his eyes, irritation flared in his gaze, aimed squarely at Juju King. Yet she met his glare with an almost dismissive indifference, as though his anger barely registered. Next came Tang San and Ma Hongjun. They blinked into consciousness and froze in surprise at the sight of Cheng Xiao standing nearby. Only after Oscar quietly filled them in did the shock on their faces settle into understanding. But Tang San's expression was layered with something more, an unmistakable unwillingness. He pressed his fists hard behind his back, knuckles whitening with the force of his restraint. Hidden in the shadows, Tang San's master allowed himself a small, satisfied grin. He had bet on this setback, crushing Tang San's spirit. Instead, the boy's clenched fists told a different story. Defeat had not extinguished his resolve. It had ignited it. Only stubbornness can drive him to greater heights. "You've done well, Xiao-san," the master mused with a hint of pride. As the Shrek crew began to stir, back to their feet, Qinming seized the moment. "Dean Flanders, since I'm finally back in town, why don't you take the younger students out for a get-together at Soto City Hotel? It'll be a good chance for everyone to bond." Flanders' eyes lit up at once. "If you're footing the bill," he said without hesitation. Qinming froze. Of all people, Flanders was the stingiest dean imaginable. Quick on his feet, Qinming feigned offense. "Dean, after traveling all the way here, you really expect me to treat you?" Flanders waved a dismissive hand, grinning. "All right then, let's meet in 2 hours at Soto City Hotel." Bowing politely, Qinming turned to lead the Huangdo students away. Just then, Yu Tianheng, who'd been eyeing the master intently, stepped forward. He gazed at the man and whispered, "Uncle, is that really you?" At the question, the master's face darkened. Without a word, he spun on his heel and strode off, leaving everyone behind in stunned silence. Since he'd been cast out of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan, Xiaogang had severed every tie with the cold-hearted family that had once looked down on him. Even the fact that Yu Tianheng was his nephew wasn't enough to bring him back. "Uncle," Yu Tianheng called out in surprise when Xiaogang strode off without a backward glance. He paused for only a moment before racing to catch up. Qin Ming watched them go, puzzled. He turned to Dean Flanders. "Dean, what's going on? Who is master to Yu Tianheng?" Flanders forced a wry smile. "You didn't know. Xiaogang is actually Yu Tianheng's uncle. He's a born member of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan." Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex? Qin Ming's eyes widened. That clan was infamous, yet he'd never suspected his master had any connection to it. Flanders waved him off. "It's old news to Xiaogang by now. He's grown used to it. Come on, our meeting is in 2 hours, remember?" "All right." Qin Ming gave a nod and led the Huangdou delegation away. As soon as they'd gone, Flanders turned to Oscar and the others. "Let's move out. If you feel outclassed, then put in the extra work. Train harder. Let's head back to the hotel to freshen up, then make our way to the Soto City Hotel for our appointment." At those words, everyone from Shrek gave slight nods. Tang San, however, felt his hands ball into fists beneath the table. Flanders' earlier jibe about his inadequate skills still stung. Gathering his courage, he cleared his throat. "Dean Flandre, perhaps we could wait a bit longer for teacher?" Flandre frowned and sighed. "Don't worry about him. Xiaogang's just fussing over nothing. Give him some time to settle down. He'll come around." Meanwhile, on a deserted street in Soto City, the teacher walked with his shoulders hunched and face downcast. A few paces behind, Yu Tianheng followed at a measured distance, as though afraid to intrude, yet unwilling to fall away entirely. After a stretch of silence, the teacher abruptly stopped. He turned, eyes narrowing as he regarded the boy standing some 3 meters back. His voice shook. "Tianheng, why are you here?" Yu Tianheng hesitated only a moment before calling softly, "Uncle, please, come home with me." "Go home." The teacher's question trembled on the evening air, charged with both surprise and something deeper, hope, perhaps. "I haven't had a home in so long," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The master shook his head, a gentle firmness in his eyes. "That isn't true. The Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex family has always been, and will always be, your home." Chapter 95. The Confident Master. "Yu Tianheng, please stop," the master said, waving a hand as a faint tremor ran through his frame. "Even if I wanted to go home now, I couldn't face everyone like this. Not until I've proven myself to the world. I won't return and be laughed at." Yu Tianheng fell silent, understanding shining in his eyes. Though his uncle had been away for many years, Tianheng still remembered how, in his childhood, his father, the rightful heir, had been consumed by managing family affairs and his own cultivation. It had been his uncle who'd stood by him most loyally. Their bond, forged by the uncle's unique martial soul, ran deep. The two sat in a thoughtful hush. Eventually, the master drew a steady breath, pushing down the whirlwind of emotions inside him. He met Tianheng's gaze and asked softly, "Tianheng, can you tell me, how did Cheng Xiao manage to join the Imperial fighting team? He's nothing more than a commoner. He doesn't have noble status. Why was he allowed to enroll at Tiando Imperial Academy?" Yu Tianheng paused, gathering his thoughts. "Uncle, I'm sorry. Cheng Xiao received a direct recommendation from His Highness the Crown Prince. That's all I know." "The Imperial family?" His uncle's brow furrowed. He stepped forward and gripped Yu Tianheng's shoulder firmly. "Tianheng, forget all that. What I'm really asking is this. Will you join Shrek Academy? In other words, will you help me, your uncle, make a name for myself in the world?" Yu Tianheng stared up at him, bewildered. "Uncle, what are you talking about?" He knew exactly what this meant. He'd already left the Imperial combat team and thrown his lot in with the Shrek squad, an action that would see his father and grandfather tearing him limb from limb if they found out. "I need to discuss this with father and grandfather. I can't decide something this big on my own." His uncle sighed, releasing his grip and stepping back. "Tianheng, if you still consider me family, just promise me one thing." Senior Master's eyes glinted with quiet confidence as he addressed Yu Tianheng. "Did you know that Tang San He, the Blue-Silver Grass Spirit Master, is my direct disciple? By the age of 13, he'd already reached soul power level 33. You felt his strength yourself. Admittedly, we're still in the dark about Cheng Xiao's martial soul, but make no mistake, Tang San He's power is real. He leaned forward, resting a hand lightly on the table. Your Imperial fighting team will inevitably fall to my disciple. However, if you're willing to accept my guidance in cultivation, there's no reason you can't become the most powerful warrior on this continent. Tianheng's face went pale. 33 at 13? When I was that age, I had only just broken through to Great Soul Master. Uncle, how did he train so fast? What kind of prodigy is he? Senior Master chuckled, the sound low and assured. Exactly my point. He's obviously bonded to a blue-silver grass spirit, yet his progress has outstripped yours by leagues. Remarkable, isn't it? He straightened in his seat, a proud smile softening his features. Not bad at all. Yu Xiaogang's voice was low, but carried an unmistakable edge as he stood before his nephew, Yu Tianheng. My own strength may not rival the great masters, he began, but that doesn't mean I can't produce outstanding disciples. If Tang San hadn't been careless in that soul-fighting match, your Imperial fighting team wouldn't have stood a chance. Tianheng's jaw clenched, but Xiaogang pressed on. And remember this, Tang San already wields one of the rarest external soul bones for someone his age. You don't go out and find gifts like that. They find you. One day I'll prove to the world that Yu Xiaogang is no longer a nobody. Every disciple I train will become one of the continent's finest. He paused, then leveled a challenging look at Tianheng. I'm leaving now. Think carefully about what I've said. Will you come with me and make your own mark on the world, or remain under our family's thumb for the rest of your life? The choice is yours. Without waiting for an answer, Yu Xiaogang turned and strode into the shadowed alley, his figure swallowed by the night. Tianheng stood frozen, mind racing. His uncle's words had struck a chord, but something about them felt off. Meanwhile, at the Soto City Hotel, the Shrek Students' Hotel was only a short walk from the Soto City Hotel. After a quick freshening up, Flanders led the group over to their dinner appointment. Tang San, still nursing a broken heart, politely excused himself from the banquet. Aside from him and his master and disciple pair, nearly every Shrek member showed up. When they stepped into the restaurant, Flanders immediately spotted Qin Ming's party, already gathered around a vast table, piled high with steaming dishes and bottles of fine liquor. Notably absent on the opposing side were Cheng Xiao and Ye Lingling. Cheng Xiao had long-standing disagreements with some of the Shrek students, and Ye Lingling simply detested boisterous crowds. To make matters worse, Ma Hongjun had spent the entire journey teasing them mercilessly, which certainly didn't help persuade the two to join. On the drive over, Flanders had taken every opportunity to introduce Qin Ming to his juniors, boasting that Qin Ming was the continent's second youngest Soul Emperor and one of the Academy's proudest alumni. A little pride, he'd reasoned, was only natural when speaking of your own school's graduate. Before the last of the Shrek students even reached the table, a clear, resonant voice rang out across the room. Qin Ming, we've arrived, with all my juniors in tow. Heads turned as Flanders and his students approached, ready to mix old friendships with new alliances over tonight's feast. The heavy doors to the private dining hall swung open, and Dean Flanders strode in alongside Vice President Zhao Wuji, followed by the Shrek Academy students. The moment they appeared, Qin Ming rose from his seat, eyes bright with respect, and bowed deeply to the two senior cultivators. Zhao Wuji's stern features softened. After so many years since graduation, he was genuinely delighted to see his former disciples again. Dean Flanders, Vice President Zhao, please have a seat, Qin Ming said with a warm smile, gesturing to the elaborately laid table. Flanders and Zhao exchanged a polite nod, returned his smile, and took their places. Qin Ming then sat himself at the head of the table. No sooner had everyone settled than Ma Hongjun's gaze locked onto the feast before him, glistening roast chicken, sticky honeyed ribs, an array of fresh vegetables, and steaming bowls of soup. His stomach growled audibly. Finally, meat tonight, he crowed, shoving aside an empty chair and lunging for the chicken. Dean Flanders' eyes flashed. With a swift flick of his wrist, he delivered a sharp rap across the back of Ma Hongjun's hand. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Ow! Ma Hongjun yanked his hand back, rubbing it as pain flared. He shot Flanders a resentful look. Teacher, why'd you do that? Dean Flanders sneered. With so many distinguished guests watching, don't you find your behavior a bit shameful? Ma Hongjun bristled, rubbing the back of his hand. Dean, I'm hungry. Seeing the tension rising, Qin Ming stepped forward with an easy smile. Dean Flanders, we're all friends here. There's no need for so much formality. Let him eat whatever he likes. No need to hold back. Ma Hongjun shot Flanders a triumphant look. You heard Senior Qin, Dean. I can eat whatever I want. Thanks, Senior Qin. Without another word, he threw his arms wide and plunged his hands into the dishes, utterly unconcerned by the hush and shocked stares around him. The members of the royal fighting team exchanged bewildered glances. Who were these students from Shrek Academy, and why were they behaving like they'd never seen a proper banquet before? Ma Hongjun's table manners were, frankly, appalling. Du Guyan, seated beside Yu Tianheng, turned her head away in embarrassed dismay. She closed her eyes, inwardly cursing her decision to attend. If she'd known it would go like this, she'd have stayed back at Tiando City with Ye Lingling. Zhao Wuji noticed the air had grown a little stiff, so he threw back his head and laughed. Rising from his seat, he clapped Qin Ming on the shoulder. You lazy boy, he teased. Since we're all together, why don't we eat? He leaned in conspiratorially. Old Zhao may have traveled far and wide, but I'll tell you, this banquet we've laid out is the finest feast Shrek Academy has seen in a century. At the mention of a rare Shrek Academy delicacy, the members of the royal fighting team exchanged knowing glances. Ma Hongjun's face had gone ashen. No wonder he'd looked famished all day. It dawned on them that he'd never sampled such extravagance before. Flanders scowled at Zhao Wuji, but was powerless to dampen the older man's good humor. Zhao Wuji motioned for Qin Ming to join him in a toast, and soon the table was alive with the clink of cups and the murmur of hungry students. When plates were finally set before them, Flanders cleared his throat to reintroduce their honored guest. Everyone, gather round, he called. This is Senior Qin, leader of the royal fighting team and one of our own. He studied here at Shrek Academy and now teaches at Tianda Royal Academy. He's 34 years old, courageous beyond his years, and his martial spirit is the fiery wolf, a level 62 strong attack war soul emperor. A ripple of excitement passed through the Shrek students. As chopsticks rose and bowls filled, the earlier awkwardness vanished. Tonight, they would dine like royalty, and in the company of a legend. According to the Spirit Hall's records, he's the second youngest Soul Emperor on the entire continent, and his future is exceptionally bright. Dean Flanders allowed himself a small, proud smile. Qin Ming's reputation was impeccable wherever he went, and Flanders shared that confidence. 34 years old, and already a level 62 War Soul Emperor, that's something. Everyone knew that the older a Soul Master got, the harder it became to raise their soul power. Aside from the Royal Combat Team members, the entire Shrek Academy stood in stunned silence. Such prodigious talent truly justified the title of the continent's second youngest Soul Emperor. In Douluo Continent, barring cheaters or the extraordinarily lucky, very few ordinary cultivators ever reached his level by that age. Ha! None of this would have been possible without your guidance, Dean, Qin Ming said with a grin, politely giving Flanders his due. Flanders simply returned the smile, saying nothing more. In their hearts, both Shrek and Qin Ming were the proudest achievements of their lives, along with the rest of the Shrek 7 devils. Zhao Wuji chuckled, twisting his chopsticks with exaggerated reluctance. All right, Flanders, Qin Ming, enough flattering each other. If you two don't start eating, none of the rest of us will dare either. He shook his head in mock exasperation. Come on, let's eat. I'm starving. Let's dig in then, Qin Ming agreed with a bright smile, and at once the table buzzed with activity. Dishes were passed around, chopsticks clacked against plates, and laughter filled the air. Yet across from them, Xiaowu found that even the finest food and wine tasted bland. Her eyes kept drifting toward the entrance, waiting for someone who still hadn't appeared. No matter how sumptuous the feast, her appetite was gone. Chapter 96, A Proposal from the Royal Academy. By the time the last of the wine was poured and the dishes cleared, the lacquered door of the private room slid open. Uncle Xiao Gang stepped in, eyeing Flanders' flushed face and half-empty goblet with a scowl. Flanders, what on earth are you doing, drunk before dinner's even over? He demanded. Flanders's cheeks burned as he waved a hand in feeble apology. Uncle Xiaogang, I'm just happy. I may have overindulged. Xiaogang's eyes narrowed. I don't care how you celebrate, just don't let it get in the way of business. What business? Flanders mumbled, fully awake now, but before he could press for details, Xiaogang's gaze shifted to Yu Tianheng. Tianheng, he said, voice level but firm, I've spoken with your instructors. How would you feel about transferring to the Tiando Royal Academy? Joining our ranks at Shrek Academy has its advantages. At those words, Qin Ming, who had been sitting quietly beside Tianheng, snapped his head up. His expression darkened instantly. Uncle Xiaogang, he said, voice low and dangerous, what do you mean by this? Uncle Xiaogang waved a hand dismissively. I mean only what any uncle would. I think the Royal Academy has led you astray. It's time you returned home to better training. Flanders, sobered in an instant, lunged forward to cover Xiaogang's mouth, his voice rushing out in apology. Brother Qin, please don't mind him. He's always looked out for Tianheng. Qin Ming shot a hard glance at Flanders before turning his steely gaze back to Xiaogang. The air in the room crackled with tension as each man prepared his next move. Xiaogang must be utterly confused. He's just talking nonsense, the master declared, his tone cool but firm. Flanders bristled, about to retort, but the master continued without missing a beat. Don't forget, Flanders, Tianheng is my nephew. I personally arranged for him to join Shrek Academy. What's wrong with me guiding his training? And let's not overlook the fact that I'm a branch head of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan. Among all of us here, who could possibly know more about the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaur than I do? He paused, sweeping his gaze over the assembled crowd. You yourself told me that, over the years, Shrek Academy has admitted only 62 students, and only 14 of them ever graduated. Yet every graduate went on to make a name for themselves, and the most exceptional even rose to become an elder of the Spirit Hall, second in authority only to the Pope. You've shared those very statistics with me. So tell me, Flanders, how can our academy, which has produced a Spirit Hall elder, be considered inferior to the Tiando Royal Academy that's never produced one? At the master's words, Qin Ming's eyes widened. Beside him, Flanders fell awkwardly silent, uncertain how to respond. Qin Ming recalled that during his own days at Shrek Academy, he'd never heard Flanders mention any of these achievements. The truth of the master's claims hung in the air, undeniable and unchallenged. Headmaster Flanders bristled inwardly. Could it really be true that some Shrek Academy graduates have gone on to become Spirit Hall elders? Douluos, of all things? Why bring this up now, as if everyone but him already knew? And if the academy truly lacked funds, would he spin such tall tales just to calm anxious parents? How on earth could any graduate ever rise to the rank of Spirit Hall elder? If they actually could, why would Shrek Academy still be on the verge of shutting down for lack of money? Flanders's solemn expression seemed to sway Qin Ming. He couldn't help but wonder if there was more truth to the story, after all. Turning to Yu Tianheng, he asked, Tianheng, what do you make of all this? Yu Tianheng inclined his head respectfully. Master, this is a matter arranged by my family. I'm afraid I have no say in the decision. Flanders's face darkened. Family, always family, he muttered under his breath. Is the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan that expelled him really that form? I double. Even if Yu Xiaogang were to sever all ties with them, shouldn't he still manage just fine on his own? The patriarch's face flushed with shame at the memory of his own expulsion from the family. He was about to snap, until Dugu Yan, seated beside Yu Tianheng, spoke up. Dean Flanders, she began, her tone polite but firm. If I'm not mistaken, the minimum rank for a Spirit Hall elder is that of a titled Douluo. Are you seriously claiming that Shrek Academy has produced one? Or is this merely a marketing ploy to attract new students? She clicked her tongue lightly. Take Teacher Qin, for example. He's now a Soul Emperor. By your logic, graduates of Shrek Academy attain titled Douluo status in their 30s, long before they turn 40. Duguyan leaned forward, her eyes sharp. As I recall, the youngest titled Douluo ever recognized by the Spirit Hall was the legendary Fearless Haotian Douluo, an unparalleled talent who only reached that rank at 44. Are you suggesting Shrek has somehow surpassed even him? A stunned silence fell over the observation box. All eyes turned to the patriarch and Dean Flanders, their expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. Du Yan's challenge rang true. On the entire continent, no one younger than Hao Tian Douluo had ever claimed that distinguished title. At 44, he had finally broken through to become a level 90 title Douluo. By all accounts, a true prodigy from Shrek Academy ought to achieve that rank in their 30s. Even now, Tang Hao remains the youngest title Douluo ever officially recognized by the Spirit Hall. If someone had really reached title Douluo status in their 30s, the Spirit Hall would have announced it long ago. Hiding such a marvel would serve no purpose. Teacher Flanders stood before his eager students, their eyes fixed on him. Ma Hongjun, unable to contain his excitement, straightened in his seat and called out, "Master, I heard this rumor came straight from Shrek. Please tell us the name of this senior title Douluo. Someday, when Shrek graduates step into the wider world, we'll be proud to hail a title Douluo from our own college." With that challenge, Ma Hongjun practically roasted Flanders on the spot. If there really were such a hero, of course Flanders would share the news. But as silence stretched on, it became painfully clear there wasn't anyone to name. Emboldened, several other students jumped in with rapid-fire questions. What's his title? What's his true name? Has he ever visited our campus? Flanders's face flushed a deep crimson. The more they pressed, the hotter he blushed, until the entire class fell silent, straining to see whether their teacher would crack or hold his tongue. Flanders's temper flared as he shot a glare at Yu Xiaogang. Inwardly, he'd already cursed the man 1,000 times over. What was he thinking, dragging this out into the open when it could have been settled quietly? And that 30-year-old elder Douluo story. If such a powerhouse really existed, Shrek Academy wouldn't be scraping by. It was obviously a concoction, a flashy title invented to lure top recruits and justify the sky-high tuition. Flanders himself had nearly forgotten the rumor, until Yu Xiaogang mentioned it again, sending all those hopeful students into a panic and turning their eyes on him once more. How was he supposed to smooth this over? Watching Flanders's face go pale, Qin Ming sighed softly. He knew his colleague's pride well enough. The Wuhun Palace Elder Douluo label was almost certainly just another ploy to boost enrollment and pad Flanders's pockets, especially since Shrek's registration fee was strictly non-refundable. With a weary shake of his head, Qin Ming prepared himself for the awkward explanations to come. As more people signed up, the registration fee climbed steadily, and the college would soon take in a tidy sum. Sensing that Director Flanders was growing flustered, unable to substantiate his claims about the mysterious titled Douluo Senior, Qin Ming stepped in with a reassuring smile. "Actually," Qin Ming begged, "and the senior you're all curious about wasn't a student at Shrek Academy at all, but one of its former instructors. Shortly after I enrolled myself, he resigned for personal reasons and quietly left the school. Today, he serves as an elder of the Wuhun Palace, an identity they keep highly confidential. It's precisely because Wuhun Palace elders never seek the public eye that his presence here remains so obscure." At Qin Ming's explanation, everyone's confusion melted away. Flanders exhaled in relief, a grateful smile spreading across his face. "Thank you, Qin Ming," he chuckled. "If you hadn't stepped in, I would have been completely embarrassed tonight." With the air cleared and his reputation intact, the registration drive continued without further incident. "Actually, this elder from Wuhun Palace was never one of our students," Flanders explained smoothly. "He used to teach here. When he first arrived at the academy, his spirit power was already above 80. It still took him several years to break through to Douluo level, and only then did he leave." As he spoke, Flanders flashed a knowing look at Zhao Wuji. The implication was plain, and Zhao Wuji caught on immediately. He cleared his throat twice. "Ahem. Everyone, I'm afraid you've misunderstood Dean Flanders," Zhao Wuji interjected. "There's simply no way anyone could reach Douluo in their 30s. That's nothing but rumor." At those words, the master's expression twitched. He distinctly remembered Flanders introducing himself as a graduating student, not a teacher. But whatever the truth, now was not the time to argue the point. Master Gang took a deep breath, his eyes serious as he met Yu Tianheng's gaze. "Tianheng, trust me. Come train under my guidance. I'll use theoretical methods to make you strong." Yu Tianheng let out a reluctant sigh, frustration creasing his brow. "Uncle, I can't decide this right now." When Master Gang remained unyielding, Qin Ming stepped forward. "Master, didn't Dean Flanders already explain the situation?" Master Gang frowned. "What did he say?" Qin Ming exchanged a glance with Dean Flanders before answering. "Privately, Dean Flanders told me that Shrek Academy's funds are virtually gone. Tonight's soul battle is our last chance. If we lose, the Academy will be forced into bankruptcy." Dean Flanders ran a tired hand through his hair and sighed. "Xiao Gang, you know it as well as I do. Our account balance is nearly zero, and this is our final cohort of students. A win tonight keeps the doors open, lose, and there's nothing left." Master Gang's expression flashed with anger. "Flanders, why didn't you tell me sooner? Are you willing to watch me forfeit the opportunity to prove my soul theory? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Xiao Gang's voice trembled with frustration. "If I'd known, I would have agreed to the Great Fighting Spirit Arena's terms." Flanders flinched at the accusation, but felt no guilt. As Dean, Shrek Academy was his responsibility, even if it meant taking the blame alone. He squared his shoulders and met Xiao Gang's glare. "Listen, I've already spoken with Qin Ming. Shrek Academy can't carry on as it is. But for the sake of these students, I've arranged a merger with Tiando Royal Academy." Xiao Gang's eyes widened. "A merger? You can't be serious." Flanders shook his head. "We've been chasing a dream for too long. We simply don't have the resources to give our students the advanced mimetic training or the elite-level competition they need, especially with the Elite Soul Master Tournament coming up in 2 years." He took a deep breath. "If we really want to prove our martial arts theory, Shrek Academy must enter that tournament, and we can't do it alone. That's why Shrek will integrate into Tiando Royal Academy. Together, we'll have the facilities, the instructors, and the reputation to compete." Xiao Gang ran a hand through his hair. "But what about Yu Tianheng? He's been desperate to join Shrek." Flanders smiled gently. "He'll still come, but not here. When Shrek merges with Tiando, Yu Tianheng will enroll under our banner there. He'll have everything he needs, just as the others will." Seeing his friend's reluctant nod, Flanders felt a surge of hope. The old Shrek Academy might be ending, but with Tiando's support, their dream of training champions could finally become reality. "Could you please provide the full chapter text? I'll revise the entire passage into smooth, idiomatic English once I have all of it. In the meantime, here's a polished version of the line you shared. After all, I'm the dean of the children, and I'll always go to great lengths for them. Keep that in mind." Chapter 97, The Master Who Defied Tiangang. After hours of tense debate, the master at last conceded to Flanders' proposal. Shrek Academy would merge with Tiando Royal Academy on one non-negotiable condition. If Qin Ming refused the terms, Shrek would be declared disbanded and forever barred from any affiliation with Tiando in Soto City. Qin Ming hesitated. He knew some of Shrek's students had questionable morals, but their talent was undeniable. More importantly, this deal existed only because of Flanders' backing. Without him, Qin Ming wouldn't even have been allowed at the negotiating table. Swallowing his pride, Qin Ming agreed. Flanders then laid out the 2 ironclad stipulations. 1. Shrek's identity must stay intact. Even as part of Tiando Royal Academy, Shrek Academy must remain a distinct entity. The 7 monsters cannot be separated or reassigned. They must continue to train exclusively under Shrek's own instructors. No outside teacher may replace them. 2. No interference in Shrek's affairs. Tiando Royal Academy may not meddle in Shrek's internal matters. If any student, monster or otherwise, chooses to leave Shrek or even withdraw from Tiando altogether, the academies must not impede them. This is a partnership, not a takeover. Qin Ming felt a flush of embarrassment at the severity of the terms. Yet given Flanders' authority and the strength of Shrek's reputation, he had little choice but to accept. With that, the fate of Shrek Academy and its famed 7 monsters was sealed, a union of equals defying the might of Tiangang itself. He didn't answer the master right away. Instead, he turned to Flanders. "The first condition is doable," he conceded, "but the second, you'd have us coming and going whenever we please?" Qin Ming cleared his throat, awkward. "Isn't that a bit much, Xiao Gang?" Flanders sniffed, shot a quick glance at the master's impassive face, then winked, though the master appeared not to notice. He went on without missing a beat. "Leader Qin Ming, If you accept those two terms, I will personally arrange for Shrek Academy's merger into Tiando Royal Academy. If you refuse, then let's drop the idea. You all know how exceptional Shrek's students are. If Tiando won't take them, they'll simply enroll elsewhere. There are plenty of schools qualified for the Continental Senior Soul Masters Tournament. Shrek Academy isn't demanding that you join Tiando, but surely you see the disadvantage for Tiando if it lets Shrek's talents slip away. At those words, Qinming's face darkened. Although the master's proposal had its merits, it came across as if Tiando Royal Academy were the ones desperate for Shrek Academy's arrival. Qinming and the two deans, Flanders and Zhao Wuji, exchanged awkward, pained looks. After all, it was Shrek Academy that had gone bankrupt and been forced to merge with Tiando. Yet even here, those prodigious students were still widely regarded as Shrek Academies, their reputation undiminished. Hearing the master speak, Flanders couldn't shake the feeling that Tiando Royal Academy was on its knees, begging Shrek Academy to send over its best and brightest. For a moment, the room fell into an uncomfortable silence. At last, Qinming cleared his throat. "Master," he began, voice measured, "I can agree to your first condition on behalf of Tiando Royal Academy, but your second demand puts me in an extremely awkward position." Awkward. The master's brow furrowed. "Are you telling me that you, the very leader of the Imperial fighting team, cannot make this decision?" Qinming gave a strained laugh. "Well, it seems I'm at an impasse too," he admitted, glancing across the table at Flanders. "Why don't you and the sect master step outside and see if you can work out better terms?" Flanders stood, inclining his head toward the sect master. "Xiao Gang, would you join me out here? There's something I'd like to discuss with you in private." He opened the door of the meeting chamber and slipped through it without waiting for a reply. Inside, the sect master hesitated. He'd proposed these conditions to benefit the students of Shrek Academy, so why did Flanders treat him like an outsider? But 10 years of friendship held more weight than pride, and he refused to let Flanders be embarrassed in public. With a brief sigh, he rose and followed Flanders into the corridor. The second the door closed, an awkward hush fell over the room. Every member of Shrek Academy looked unconvinced, no one more so than Ning Rongrong. Though she bore the nickname Little Witch, the princess of the Qibao Glazed Tile sect was far from foolish. From her vantage point, given Shrek Academy's current circumstances, the sect master's demands were entirely unreasonable. How can he demand something of you and then tack on impossible conditions? That's not only rude, it flies in the face of Tiangeng's code. The air in the room tensed, so Zhao Wuji laughed to break the silence. He seized a hefty pewter mug of ale from the table, pulled up a stool beside Qinming, and downed the brew in one long swallow. Setting the mug back on the table with a clang, he leaned close and spoke in a low voice. "Don't worry," he said. "Flanders is the dean of Shrek Academy, not the master. You and I both know how things really work there. Flanders isn't that stupid. Any sharp eye can see the strings the master is pulling. He's just using us to make things difficult for you." Qinming forced a grim smile. "I hope you're right." At that moment, the sliding door to the private room opened. Dean Flanders stepped in first, his lips curved in a polite smile. Behind him came the master, his face as dark as thunderclouds. "Qinming," Flanders began smoothly, "I've discussed your matter with the master. Why don't we amend the second condition?" Flanders suggested with a grin. "Have Yu Tianheng join the Shrek 7 as our 8th monster. After all, his uncle is the master. How could there be any problem with having him train Tianheng?" Qinming bit his lip. Yu Tianheng was the heart and soul of the Huangdou team. Recruiting him would seriously weaken their lineup. He felt torn. Still, he knew this decision rested with Yu Tianheng, and ultimately with Yu Tianheng's father and grandfather, who held the real authority. After a moment's hesitation, Yu Tianheng gave a measured reply. "Uncle, when I return to Tiando Royal Academy, I'll formally write to the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex family. If my father and grandfather approve, I'll join the Shrek 7. But if they refuse, I have no choice." The master let out a long, resigned sigh. Qinming stood in the grand hall of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan, eyeing the faded banners above him. He'd never thought much of this place, yet it was where he'd been trained from boyhood. Though he had no intention of rejoining the clan, his deep study of martial theory had borne real fruit, and it only seemed right that he offer something in return. Uncle Tianheng regarded him calmly, confidence shining in his eyes. "Tianheng, my boy," the old master began, voice steady, "with my rigorous instruction in martial theory, your path as a soul master will surely advance further than you ever imagined. Think it over." Qin Ming could only shake his head, at a loss for words in the face of his mentor's unwavering belief. He managed a wry grin, turned on his heel, and joined Flanders and Zhao Wuji at a side table, cracking open a beer, the tension of the moment melting away with each long, cool sip. Chapter 98. How to Restrain Cheng Xiao. Just before sunrise, the members of the Imperial fighting team settled their bills and checked out of the Rose Hotel. Their months-long soul combat training in Soto City was finally over. Standing by the city gate, they loaded their gear onto the carriage and prepared to depart. Across the dusty courtyard, Cheng Xiao stood talking quietly with a girl in the distance, one of the Shrek Academy students they'd met here. His teammates paused, bewildered expressions on their faces. "Since when did Cheng Xiao get so chummy with the girls from Shrek Academy?" Yu Feng muttered, rubbing his chin. A sly grin flickered in his eyes. Oslo shot him a warning look. "Shh, don't say that so loud. You're not thinking he crawled out for a date after last night's drinking session, are you?" "A date?" Yu Feng blinked in surprise. "But he was with Ling Ling at the hotel all evening. We practiced together until late." Before Yu Feng could finish, Du Guyan delivered a sharp kick to his backside. "Don't push your luck, Yu Feng," she hissed. "Want me to teach you a lesson?" Yu Feng yelped, hopping on one foot as the team burst into laughter. Cheng Xiao, cheeks tinged pink, waved shyly at the girl one last time before climbing into the carriage. As the wheels creaked and the horses trotted away, the Imperial fighting team set off down the road, jokes and jostling filling the morning air. Whatever had truly happened the night before, they agreed on one thing. Restraining Cheng Xiao's social life would be far harder than any combat drill. "Don't talk nonsense." Yu Feng clutched his sore backside with an aggrieved sigh, then sheepishly slipped behind Yu Tianheng and fell silent. Meanwhile, on the other side of the clearing, Cheng Xiao gave Xiao Wu a final warning about staying safe. Xiao Wu nodded, bashfully agreed to meet again in Tiando City in a few months, and wrapped Cheng Xiao in a shy hug before they parted ways. As soon as the two of them disappeared, Yu Feng burst back into the group, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Yo, yo, yo! Group hug!" Ahem, Yu Tianheng cleared his throat loudly and shot Cheng Xiao a pointed glance. "Remember your image out there." Cheng Xiao frowned. What was all that about? It was just a normal farewell. Why were they acting so awkward, like they'd each eaten a handful of sour plums? Yu Feng sidled up to Cheng Xiao with a mischievous grin. "Hey boss, when did you start hooking up with such a cute little girl?" Cheng Xiao arched an eyebrow and gave him a smirk. "You want in on the action, do you? Teach me your ways? Seriously interested? Think about it." "All right, think on it." "Damn." Cheng Xiao threw up his hands in mock outrage, stamping his foot. "You're impossible." Back at Shrek Academy, the master had barely set foot inside the gate when he summoned his treasured disciple, Tang San. After a night spent pondering, Master finally cracked the problem of Fang Xiao's martial spirit, and he couldn't wait to share his solution. That morning, Tang San found Master already settled at a table groaning under the weight of a lavish breakfast spread. "Master, you wanted to see me?" he asked, a trace of doubt in his voice. Master chuckled, stroking his beard. "No need to stand on ceremony. You haven't eaten all night. Start here." He waved at the plates piled with steaming buns, fresh fruit, and aromatic porridge. "Replenish your strength first." Tang San didn't need a second invitation. He'd been so absorbed in his thoughts, and so concerned about Master's summons, that he'd forgotten to eat. If it hadn't been for Oscar's timely reminder that morning, he would still be pacing his hotel room. Now, after polishing off most of the breakfast, he leaned back, satisfied. Master cleared his throat and leaned forward. "Xiaosan, I have good news. I've worked out a way to deal with Cheng Xiao. Would you like to hear it?" At the mention of Cheng Xiao, Tang San's normally composed expression lit up. Excitement flooded his face. "Yes, please, Master. Tell me everything." He had lost to Cheng Xiao too many times and was desperate for an advantage. Finally, a ray of hope was in sight. Tang San felt a fire in his chest. There was only one thing on his mind now: winning. But before he could charge ahead, Master Yu raised a calm hand to forestall him. "Hold on," Master Yu said in his even, measured tone. "Let me first tell you about last night's meeting with Flanders and Qin Ming, the leader of the Huangdou team." He settled back and unfolded every detail: how he and Flanders had been invited to negotiate, and how, by the end of the evening, Shrek School had been offered a place within the Tiando Royal Academy. Tang San's heart sank. Absorb into Tiando Royal Academy? The words rang cold in his ears. "Teacher," he blurted, "if Shrek merges with the Royal Academy, won't Cheng Xiao and the others have control over us? Dictate our training, our matches, every decision?" Master Yu let out a warm laugh. "You truly are my pupil, ever wary of giving up autonomy. There are always pros and cons to weigh." He reached out and patted Tang San's shoulder, his dark eyes twinkling with reassurance. "We have time. You don't need to give me an answer tonight." With that, he leaned back, leaving Tang San to wrestle with the risks and rewards of an alliance that could change Shrek's destiny forever. Chapter 7. Merging Shrek Academy with Tiando Royal Academy is a valid concern, Master Wang began, his tone measured. "Given our dire finances, Shrek Academy simply can't provide top-tier martial soul mimicry training to prodigies like you. Tiando Royal Academy, on the other hand, has the resources and instructors we lack." He paused, letting that sink in. Then he continued. "There's another issue. In 2 years, the continent-wide Senior Soul Master Elite Tournament will open its doors, and Shrek Academy, as it stands, doesn't meet the entry requirements. But once we join Tiando Royal Academy, all of these problems disappear." Qi Xiao nodded thoughtfully. He'd heard rumors of Tiando's wealth and influence, but seeing Master Wang outline the benefits so plainly made it hard to argue with. "Don't misunderstand," Master Wang said quickly. "Though we're underfunded, we're far from powerless. In fact, Tiando has set a special condition for our merger. Yu Tianheng, the captain of the Imperial team, will transfer to us once the paperwork is finalized. Team Shrek will become what they're calling the Eighth Wonder." Qi Xiao's eyes widened. He'd sparred with Yu Tianheng before and knew the young captain was formidable. "He's no slouch," Qi Xiao admitted. "Not on your level, of course, but still a strong ally." "Precisely," Master Wang agreed, smiling. "With Yu Tianheng on our side, we'll not only shore up our own defenses, but also attract other talented souls from the Imperial team. Allow me to have a word with him, and see if we can bring his entire squad on board." Qi Xiao leaned forward, a spark of excitement in his eyes. The prospect of world-class training and a berth in the elite tournament was too good to pass up. "Very well," he said. "Let's make it happen." "By then, will Tiando Royal Academy still bear its honored name?" The master muttered, his brow furrowed. He glanced at Tang San. "When the time comes, your rivalry with Cheng Xiao will only grow fiercer. You'll even have to remind Xiao Wu now and then that she belongs to us, to Shrek Academy. So why does she always turn her elbows outward in outright defiance?" The master's irritation simmered beneath the surface. Xiao Wu's stubborn independence was upsetting his carefully laid plans, but there was little he could do. Her background, after all, was shrouded in secrets. The last time Tang Hao had tried to find him, he'd returned gravely wounded. Though he never explained the cause, the master was certain Xiao Wu was somehow involved. Yet what fearsome power could have reduced his idol, the mighty heavens Douluo Tang Hao, to such a pale, frail condition? That weakened figure in his mind scarcely matched the legend he revered. As the mall stir fell silent, Tang San quietly absorbed each implication, his own thoughts racing. Tang San lifted his head to regard his master's solemn face. "Teacher, are you saying that whether Yu Tianheng can join our Shrek team depends entirely on the head of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex clan?" "If that's the case," he went on, "his chances must be pretty slim, right?" His master's eyes flickered, not with doubt but irritation. Tang San's tone implied he didn't trust his teacher's plan. Still, he answered smoothly, "Xiao San, there's no need to worry. The clan leader is my father. He's loved me since I was a child. It was the elders who cast me out. I haven't returned to the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan in all these years, but I'm certain they'll agree to a request as small as this." Tang San scratched his head, still puzzled. But, teacher, isn't this exactly the approach you recommended for handling Cheng Xiao? Yu Tianning can't even defeat me. How is he supposed to beat Cheng Xiao? His master's lips curved into a tired smile as he placed a hand on Tang San's shoulder. Boy, why do you get so worked up whenever Cheng Xiao's name comes up? The master's expression darkened. He tapped Tang San gently on the head and said, Listen closely. What I'm about to tell you is the true method for restraining Cheng Xiao. Chapter 99, An Unprecedented Experiment. Many people dismiss blue-silver grass as useless, a waste of martial souls, the teacher said with a self-satisfied smile. But after years of research, I've uncovered an advantage it possesses that no other spirit offers. Huh? An advantage? Tang San blinked in surprise, leaning forward. Teacher, you say blue-silver grass has an advantage? What is it? Ever since his martial spirit, blue-silver grass, awakened, Tang San had studied the plant in its wild form. He'd noted its extraordinary vitality and how it thrived almost everywhere, but beyond that, he saw no special qualities. That robust life force was impressive, yet Tang San had never explored any other development path for blue-silver grass. He'd simply trusted his teacher's judgment, believing it to be the best and only way forward. Now, however, he was eager to learn what secret advantage his master had discovered. Master Mu raised his right hand, extending a single finger to emphasize his point as he spoke to Tang San. First, the soul power required to wield blue-silver grass is negligible, far less than any other martial spirit. This means you can summon and use it repeatedly without wearing yourself out. Tang San nodded, summoning the silvery vines of his martial spirit. Yes, teacher, its energy cost really is minimal. I noticed that during our spirit duel. Master Mu smiled approvingly. Good. That shows how carefully you observe your martial spirit. Most soul masters never pay that much attention. But there's more I want you to understand. He let his gaze drift over the verdant stalks curling around Tang San's arms. Blue-silver grass is among the most common martial spirits, found almost everywhere. Because opponents see it so often, they tend to underestimate it. They won't even register it in the heat of battle, which makes it perfect for surprise attacks. Master Mu's expression grew serious. Second, if you truly wish to defeat Cheng Xiao, you must push your blue-silver grass to its absolute limits, exploit every hidden ability it possesses. Master Yu's eyes sparkled as he regarded Tang San. If you were any other blue-silver grass spirit master, you wouldn't even dare imagine it. But you, Xiao-san, are different. You're only the third spirit master in Douluo Continent's history to wield twin spirits. Once you survive the fragile period of blue-silver grass and switch over to the clear sky hammer, your future will shine. Tang San leaned forward, captivated. Master Yu went on, blue-silver grass's greatest flaw, its weakness, is also its greatest strength. That very fragility makes it supremely adaptable. It can grow in countless directions, and best of all, it never rejects a soul ring of any attribute. It can develop along any path without refusing any soul ring? Tang San repeated, feeling a surge of clarity. He could barely contain his excitement. Teacher, you mean that for my next soul ring, I can deliberately choose one that counters Cheng Xiao's spirit attributes? Master Yu's lips curved into a proud smile. Exactly. You are truly worthy of being my disciple. Children can be taught anything, and they can master it, the master said with a chuckle, giving Tang San's shoulder a hearty pat. Xiao-san, you've made a very clever suggestion, but there's one problem. Cheng Xiao's martial spirit is the Shadow King, which means it belongs to the dark attribute. Dark attribute soul beasts are notoriously difficult to control. He paused to let that sink in, then continued. What makes Cheng Xiao's spirit even more dangerous is its ability to summon swarms of black shadow beasts and fight in large groups. That gives him an overwhelming edge in crowd engagements. The master's eyes shone with excitement. But you've actually given me an idea. Why not turn that group tactic against him? Your own blue-silver grass excels at controlling multiple opponents. If you choose a light attribute soul beast for your fourth soul ring, ideally a plant-type spirit to work in harmony with your grass, you could neutralize his shadows and strip him of his greatest advantage. He leaned in, voice low but confident. Without his black shadow army, Cheng Xiao will be as vulnerable as fish out of water. Trust me, the best choice for your next soul ring is a light attribute, plant-type soul beast. It's the perfect counter. This won't just give your blue silvergrass the power to suppress dark-type martial spirits, it will also let it bind them, the master said, his voice calm yet charged with anticipation. And once it absorbs a light attribute soul ring, who knows what other abilities it might unlock. Tang San narrowed his eyes. Other abilities? He echoed with a hint of doubt. Master, can our blue silvergrass really develop entirely new powers simply by taking in light attribute soul rings? The master shook his head lightly. I can't be certain. My martial theory tells me that the light ring should infuse your blue silvergrass with a measure of light energy, adding restorative qualities to its existing suppression strength. Beyond that, what may arise, I honestly don't know. Master, Tang San asked softly, are you truly willing to carry out this unprecedented experiment on my behalf? The master's expectant gaze held Tang San in thrall. Though many had dismissed him as a failure, he was the first to chart a course no blue silvergrass spirit master had ever dared to follow. Tang San felt his heart stir with gratitude and respect. In that moment, he knew there was no one else he would rather call his teacher. As Tang San listened, everything fell into place. There was nothing inherently wrong with the blue silvergrass spirit. It had only ever been labeled useless by those who failed to understand it. His teacher's explanation was so thorough and insightful that Tang San felt as if the real deficiency lay not in the spirit, but in himself. After all, his master had devoted himself to studying this much-maligned martial soul, even inventing a brand-new technique to defeat Cheng Xiao, an approach Tang San had never before imagined. Such dedication and depth of theoretical research spoke volumes. The more he thought about those who had sneered at his teacher, the more their mockery struck him as nothing more than sour grapes. Now they seemed like little more than clowns, bantering out of ignorance. Master, I'm ready, Tang San said without hesitation. He believed in his teacher's vision wholeheartedly. No matter how many voices derided him, he would prove that neither a martial spirit nor its wielder was ever truly worthless. His growing theory would demonstrate, once and for all, that there are no waste spirits, only those who haven't yet unlocked their potential. At his words, his teacher's eyes shone with excitement. The master's eyes glittered as he clasped Tang San's shoulders with both hands. Xiao-san, after scrambling my brains for a solution, this is the best way I've found to hold Cheng Xiao in check. If you train along these theoretical lines, not only will you severely curb his power, you might even uncover some pleasant surprises. He leaned closer, excitement evident in his voice. You can't let me down, disciple. Tang San returned his teacher's fervent gaze and gave an assured nod. Don't worry, master. I'll prove the theory and clear the names of those short-sighted fools who doubted you. You deserve every bit of your reputation as a martial spirit theory master. In that moment, Tang San finally grasped the true advantage of the blue-silver grass spirit. It compensated for any weakness rather than resisting him. A spirit as fragile as his could devote itself entirely to the grass, making it grow stronger with every effort he invested. The master watched Tang San's determined expression, and a satisfied smile spread across his face. Very well, Xiao-san. It's settled. Go home now and pack your things. You'll begin your new training at first light. Once you reach Spirit Master level 40, I'll have Flanders lead us into the Stardew Great Forest to hunt light attribute soul beasts. All right, Master. Tang San nodded eagerly, then stepped out of the study. As he emerged into the warm sunshine, his heart raced with excitement. With a teacher so deeply knowledgeable in spirit theory guiding him, why would he ever doubt his path to power? At that moment, Tang San felt profoundly grateful for his decision to take this master as his mentor. Chapter 100, A Lesson in Humility. Just outside Tiando City lies the Tiando Royal Academy. Since his return, Cheng Xiao had fallen back into his disciplined routine, morning classes, rigorous training, soul combat drills, and, at 3 o'clock sharp, his daily line work. The academy's strict schedule kept every student on their toes, and the days passed in peaceful, predictable order. Behind the main campus is the academy's secluded rear mountain, the designated proving ground for soul masters in training. Here, tall trees form a dense canopy overhead, filtering sunlight into soft dancing beams that scatter across the forest floor in shifting patterns. Amid the undergrowth, a handful of cadets practiced their moves, weaving and striking with focused intensity. Hot on their heels, though, were dark, amorphous forms, shadow soldiers summoned to test their reflexes and resolve. Each one took a slightly different shape, a horned beast, a winged creature, a spindly humanoid, but all were coated in the same inky blackness. Suddenly, a series of muffled impacts rang out. One by one, the cadets were knocked off balance, propelled from the undergrowth like kites with broken strings. They landed in thudding heaps on the forest floor, dust and leaves swirling around them. Groans of pain and frustration rippled through the group. "Lingling, get over here. Tend to them," came a calm, amused voice. A young man strolled from between the trees, his lips curved in a faint smile. Behind him, the shadow soldiers shifted and flickered, waiting silently for his next command. Lingling hurried forward with healing salves and herbs, while the fallen cadets struggled to their knees, glaring resentfully at the smirking figure who just put them through their paces. Chapter Hex: Hell's Training Grounds. The skirmish they'd just endured was nothing more than a voluntary drill for the Royal Fighter Team. As the last of the shadow soldiers dissipated into wisps of darkness, Ye Lingling nodded to Cheng Xiao and took a deep breath. "All right," he said, drawing a steady line beneath the exercise. With a clap of his hands, he summoned his martial spirit, Jushin Haitang, the heart-piercing sea blossom. At once, the battered warriors from Huangdo, faces streaked with dirt, armor dented, groaned as they struggled upright. Jushin Haitang's radiant petals held back the final stragglers of the shadow force just long enough for the injured to limp toward the Academy's field medic. A chorus of muffled thank yous followed them as they disappeared into the tented infirmary. Ye Lingling sheathed his spirit and turned to Cheng Xiao. "Thanks for having my back." Cheng Xiao gave a quick shrug, brushing dust from his shoulders. "We all need a breather now and then." 2 months had passed since they'd returned to Tiando Royal Academy, and those 8 weeks of drills could only be described as hell. From the moment the training rang out each morning, any lapse in concentration invited another frenzied wave of shadow soldiers, giant, crushing foes, human-faced demon spiders, stealthy ghost tigers. Name any top-tier hunter, and the Academy's master trainers had thrown them at the royal fighters. Only Ye Lingling's timely interventions, his martial spirit blossoming at just the right moments, had spared the team's complete destruction. Thanks to him, they'd crawled through the gauntlet again and again, emerging battered but unbeaten. Now, gathered in the Academy's central courtyard for a rare reprieve, the team leaned against marble pillars or sat on sun-warmed steps. Yu Tianheng, fresh from a day's rest and walking with only a faint limp, found his way to Cheng Xiao, who was examining the ripples in a nearby fountain. "You know," Yu Tianheng began, his tone light but edged with genuine amazement, "I've finally figured you out." Cheng Xiao looked up, brow raised. "Oh, and what's that?" Yu Tianheng let out a low chuckle. "You're the real monster here." "Monster?" Cheng Xiao echoed, arching an eyebrow. Yu Tianheng shook his head, smiling wryly. "Most of us have been pinned under the shadow soldier's control at least once. But you, every time they launched an ambush, you sniffed it out before it even happened. You dissect their formations, strike their leaders, then vanish. It's like you're on a whole other level." Cheng Xiao's lips twitched in a teasing grin. "Believe me, I'd take human over monster any day." Yu Tianheng laughed, clapping Cheng Xiao on the shoulder. "Fair enough, but know this. I wouldn't mind having your kind of monster on my side, for a while longer at least." Cheng Xiao nodded, the hum of recovered confidence in his gaze. Around them, the Royal Fighter Team healed and trained, ready for whatever challenge the Academy would throw at them next. And now, more than ever, they believed they could survive it. There wasn't a moment to strike back under their assault. "I swear they were beyond ordinary soul beasts," one trainee whispered, eyes wide. At that, Qin Ming, leader of the Imperial Fighting Team, strolled forward with a faint smile. "Clearly your training has paid off." He turned to Cheng Xiao. "Since the mimic beasts have been dealt with, let me have a go at you." Cheng Xiao returned Qin Ming's grin. "All right, Teacher Qin." He was curious to see how he fared without calling on his shadow soldiers. Under Qin Ming's instruction, The rest of the team backed off to give them room. After all, it wasn't every day they witnessed a young Soul Emperor sparring up close. From the edge of the mock battlefield, Yufeng leaned toward Yu Tianheng. "Boss, how many moves do you think Teacher Qin will need to finish Cheng Xiao off?" Yu Tianheng watched the two combatants settle into their stances, then shrugged. "Hard to say, but with Cheng Xiao's strength, I'd wager he could hold out through 7 or 8 exchanges, if Teacher Qin doesn't really unleash his full power." Cheng Xiao's challenge to his teacher had become the talk of the academy. Only 2 months ago, he'd sought advice from Qin Ming and been stopped cold in under 3 rounds. The chasm between a Soul Lord and a Soul Emperor was, it seemed, insurmountable. This afternoon, a small crowd gathered around the sparring arena. Yu Tianheng stood at one side, arms folded, face inscrutable. Next to him, Du Guyan watched with a curl of malice on her lips. Her own breakthrough in soul power had stalled badly, and she resented Cheng Xiao for having so comprehensively defeated her in their last spirit energy duel. Vindictiveness burned in her eyes. She was determined to see him humbled once more. Just as conjecture rippled through the spectators, a soft voice cut the air. "It's begun." Ye Lingling nodded toward the center of the ring, where teacher and student were facing off. Qin Ming, calm and poised, addressed Cheng Xiao in a clear, even tone. "Cheng Xiao, you know as well as I do how great the gap is between us. I won't push myself to the limit today. Here's my offer. If you can force me to use even 4% of my full strength, you'll pass this test." Cheng Xiao's eyes shone with fighting spirit at the challenge. His body trembled as soul energy gathered around him. "Then I'll go all out, teacher," he replied, voice brimming with confidence. Before anyone could react, Cheng Xiao surged forward like a striking serpent. His speed was blinding. Spectators gasped. Qin Ming's expression flickered. He had expected speed, but never so much. "Impressive," he murmured. With the faintest shift in his stance, he met Cheng Xiao's onrush without a trace of alarm. Du Guyan's eyes narrowed. "Can he really make the Emperor strain?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Yu Tianheng merely watched, his lips twitching as he considered the outcome. The air between teacher and student crackled with soul power. Cheng Xiao poured everything he had into that first assault. His aura flared, golden light lanced outward like a thunderbolt. But Qin Ming stood firm, absorbing the impact with what appeared to be barely any effort at all. Round after round, Cheng Xiao unleashed his best techniques, whirling blade, of energy, surging waves of force, each one answered by the serene wall of his teacher's defense. The ring trembled under the titanic clash, and the watching cultivators held their breath. With each exchange, Cheng Xiao strained harder, determined to force a reaction, any sign that his teacher was exerting more than he intended. But Qin Ming's expression remained composed, his posture unshaken. As sweat beaded on Cheng Xiao's brow, he realized how far he still had to go. Yet even defeat today would teach him something invaluable. And as long as he pushed, he might just glimpse the path that led from Soul Lord to Soul Emperor. Cheng Xiao's power was undeniable. He had to be at least a level 43 Soul Lord. Bang! A muted crack rang out as Qin Ming crossed his arms to meet Cheng Xiao's whip-like kick head-on. The impact jolted through his bones, and he staggered back, wide-eyed. So this was true Soul Lord strength. Before Qin Ming could regain his footing, Cheng Xiao's next assault came. His strikes weren't sloppy or telegraphed. Instead, each blow whistled in at a skewed angle, probing for weaknesses in Qin Ming's guard. It was as if Cheng Xiao could read his every move, every attack poised to kill. "The third soul skill, Blue Wolf Fire Control," Qin Ming growled. He knew a purely defensive stance wouldn't save him. His third soul ring flared, and he slammed the sole of his foot into the earth. Cracks spider-webbed outward in an instant, jagged fissures tearing soil and stones skyward. Cheng Xiao merely grinned. He cupped a swirl of dark smoke in his palm and cast it toward Qin Ming's eyes. The cloud erupted between them, and before anyone could react, Cheng Xiao stepped back and vanished from sight. "Is he trying to blind me?" Qin Ming thought, heart pounding as the inky smoke curled in the air. Only one thing was certain. This duel was far from over. He slammed his forearm up just in time to block the swirling black smoke that momentarily blinded him. At his feet, the second soul ring flared to life, unleashing concentric waves of flame that pulsed against the training ground. As the heat rose in rippling circles, Qin Ming inhaled deeply and proclaimed, "Second soul skill, Wolf's Howl." The air around him warped with blistering heat, and just as the fiery ripples faded, a deafening wolf's howl tore from his throat. The roar sent a renewed surge of flame washing outward, nearly engulfing the entire mimic training arena. In the shadows, Cheng Xiao's heart leapt at the sound. He sprang into action, jacking his speed skill online. With a thunderous explosion of energy beneath his feet, the earth split into a small crater, and in the next heartbeat, he reappeared barely a meter from Qin Ming. "Got you!" Qin Ming's eyes flickered with triumph as he immediately spotted the opening in Cheng Xiao's approach. He tightened his stance, ready to exploit the tiniest misstep. The field crackled with tension. Two opponents, separated by only a yard, braced for the next strike. Cheng Xiao sprang forward like a released arrow, his fist wreathed in roaring flame as he aimed straight for Qin Ming. Inside his mind, he urged himself, "Strike the vital point." Across from him, Qin Ming's own fist crackled with dark energy. Black smoke curled around his arm as the two blows met in midair. Bang! The impact echoed like thunder, sending a shockwave rippling through the clearing. Dirt and pebbles exploded upward in a whirlwind of dust. For a heartbeat, neither man budged, then they each stumbled back, faces set in grim satisfaction. Qin Ming brushed grit from his robes, eyes bright with surprise. "Not bad at all," he admitted, hands on his hips. "You're barely level 30, yet your power rivals that of seasoned soul masters." Cheng Xiao stepped forward, bowing his head respectfully. "Thank you for the match, Teacher Qin Ming." Qin Ming waved a hand dismissively, chuckling. "It was nothing, a simple spar, no trouble at all." He rubbed his arm, only to find it growing numb. A cold tingle raced up his shoulder, and his vision blurred. Before he could cry out, darkness claimed him. With a soft gasp, Qin Ming slumped to the ground, unconscious. Is this kid really that powerful? After dispelling the soul skill from his arm, Qin Ming rubbed the lingering numbness, his jaw dropping in shock. He glanced at Cheng Xiao, now fully merged into the royal fighting team, who beamed back proudly. Gathering himself, Qin Ming turned to the squad lined up before him. "Listen up," he began. "The Academy still has some follow-up business to handle. Dean Flanders and the others won't arrive at Tiando Royal Academy until the end of the month. Once they're here, everyone should limit their interactions. We don't want any friction or hard feelings." He paused, surveying the fighters. "Now, except for Tianheng and Cheng Xiao, you're all dismissed. After today's training, you deserve a good rest. Go recover your strength." With that, the assembled members saluted and dispersed, leaving only Tianheng and Cheng Xiao standing at attention beside Qin Ming.